Hey there, and welcome to Beyond the Veil. I'm here to help you drift off into a peaceful sleep, offering soothing stories and gentle guidance. Before we settle into dreamland, let me know in the comments, which country are you from? And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more restful nights. Nestled in the heart of North Carolina, Bear Creek is a tranquil hamlet surrounded by lush forests, rolling hills, and sparkling streams that weave through the landscape like ribbons of silver. The area is punctuated by towering oaks and whispering pines, each tree standing as a sentinel to the myriad tales spun by the wind that in this idyllic setting. The rhythm of nature flows seamlessly, with birds singing sweet melodies at dawn and cicadas providing a gentle hum during balmy summer nights. It's a place where families gather for picnics, children wander through the woods in search of adventure, and couples steal quiet moments amidst nature's embrace. As one meanders along the winding paths leading into the depths of the forest, they might stumble upon hidden glades, vibrant wildflowers blossoming like confetti scattered across the green canvas. The air is rich with earthy scents, an intoxicating mix of damp soil and blooming flora, inviting visitors to pause and breathe deeply. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy above, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor that dance as the breeze stirs the leaves. Everything seems alive in this sanctuary, a harmonious coexistence of flora and fauna that belies the secrets lurking just beyond the edge of this serenity. However, just a short trek from this natural beauty lies a peculiar anomaly, a stark contrast to the surrounding vibrancy. At first glance, one might mistake it for a simple clearing, but those who have ventured closer quickly realize it holds something far more mysterious. Within this forest lies a perfectly round circle, measuring roughly 40 feet across, devoid of life. Not even a blade of grass dares to grow within its confines. The earth within this circle appears unnaturally barren, as if some unseen force has reached down and stripped it bare of all vegetative life, leaving only dry soil that seems to absorb rather than reflect any sunlight. The locals speak in hushed tones about this curious clearing, their voices tinged with equal parts dread and intrigue. They say it is a place where dark forces converge under cover of night, a cursed ground where the devil himself paces, plotting his next malevolent deed. It's not merely folklore. For many residents of Bear Creek, this belief is woven into the very fabric of their lives. Cautionary tales are passed down through generations to keep children from wandering too close after dusk, a fact that contributes to both fear and fascination within the community. As twilight descends upon Bear Creek and shadows stretch long across the forest floor, an air of tension electrifies the atmosphere. The trees seem to whisper secrets amongst themselves while owls begin their nightly watch. Those who dare approach the clearing often find themselves reluctant to linger longer than necessary, an instinctive pull urging them to retreat before darkness fully envelopes them. Stories abound about items carelessly left within the circle overnight: hats, small tools, or even pieces of clothing that mysteriously vanish by morning light. In their place are found oddities, stones etched with strange symbols, or occasionally items that seem completely out of context, like a child's toy appearing far from any house. Visitors invariably feel an urge to test these tales for themselves, drawn by curiosity despite warnings from local inhabitants. The bravest souls often return with palpitating hearts and wide eyes, recounting how their possessions were flung from the circle as if snatched by invisible hands. They speak of an unnatural presence that lurks just beyond human perception, a feeling that something unseen watches intently from the shadows surrounding that barren circle. Nature doesn't yield its secrets easily. It hides whispers beneath layers of foliage and silence between rustling branches. However, in Bear Creek's clearing, something distinctly malevolent seems to mar that silence, a disquieting reminder that even in places steeped in beauty, darkness can take root. It forces one to grapple with ancient fears embedded deep within humanity, the age-old struggle between good and evil manifesting right before their eyes. For those acquainted with Bear Creek's rustic charm, its bustling farmers market on weekends or annual harvest festivities, the existence of such an eerie paradox may feel jarring against the backdrop of mundane serenity. Yet it serves as a testament to how our most enchanting locales can harbor hidden realms shaped by fear and folklore, mysteries rooted not only in nature but also in our own imaginations. Thus unfolds the tapestry woven around Bear Creek, vibrant yet shadowed by its chilling mythos. Each tale shared over evening fires illuminates not just superstition but also reveals profound truths about human nature, the constant dance between light and darkness inherent in our existence. Visitors leave transformed by whispers carried on evening winds or echoes reverberating through forest halls, reminded that our reality often intertwines with stories we tell ourselves about what dwells just out of sight, and perhaps beyond all rational explanations lies something truly powerful, a reminder that even in beauty's embrace must cohabitate specters born from shadows cast long ago. One ventures deeper into the forest surrounding Bear Creek, the atmosphere shifts dramatically upon reaching the clearing. It is an anomaly, a stark departure from the verdant surroundings that cradle it. Measuring a perfect 40 feet in diameter, the circle presents an eerie geometric precision that seems almost unnatural amid the organic chaos of nature. The edges are crisp and defined, as if drawn by an artist's hand, contrasting sharply with the wild tangle of underbrush and towering trees just beyond its boundary. Upon first glance, one might be struck by the unsettling tranquility that envelopes the clearing. The ground inside is a barren expanse of dry soil, devoid of even the faintest trace of life. No grasses sway, no wildflowers bloom, even the resilient ferns that typically thrive in such rich woodland environments are conspicuously absent. This absence creates a palpable void, a sense that something has been meticulously stripped away from this patch of earth, leaving behind not just emptiness but an uncanny aura that feels thick and oppressive. The lack of vegetation is striking in its uniformity. The smooth, bare earth appears almost polished, as if buffed to remove any irregularities. This stark contrast to the lush greenery surrounding it amplifies the feeling of desolation within the circle. When sunlight filters through the leaves overhead, it casts an odd glow upon the ground, illuminating patches of dust that swirl lazily in the air, a ghostly dance that adds to the unsettling atmosphere. As visitors approach the clearing, an instinctive chill often runs down their spines. It's not merely a sensory response, rather, there exists an unexplainable sensation that seems to pulse through the air, a whisper of foreboding that urges one to reconsider their proximity to such a peculiar phenomenon. Birds that once serenaded passers-by fall silent as they near this cursed space, leaving only an eerie stillness where rustling leaves and chirping crickets should fill the air. This unnerving quiet amplifies the circle's presence, as if nature itself recoils at its existence. Surrounding this barren center are trees that stand sentinel-like, their gnarled roots wrapping around rocks and dirt as though protecting an ancient secret. The trunks are thick and twisted, their bark rough and darkened with age. It's as if these trees have witnessed countless seasons pass yet remain strangely unaffected by whatever malevolence may linger within the circle's confines. They create an almost fortress-like perimeter, watchful witnesses to all who dare approach. The transition between lush greenery and lifeless earth feels abrupt and jarring. There is no gradual fading into barrenness here. One moment you are surrounded by life, chirping birds and buzzing insects, and in the next instant, you are enveloped in an unnatural void where nothing grows or thrives. This sharp dichotomy invites speculation about what could cause such a dramatic shift in nature's rhythm. Local lore suggests that this precise round shape is no accident. Many believe it represents a portal or a gathering spot for dark energies. As dusk falls and shadows lengthen, stories abound about how this circle comes alive with sinister purpose under cover of night. Locals recount sightings of flickering lights or dark figures moving within its boundaries, adding layers of intrigue to its already chilling reputation. The chilling whispers shared around evening campfires speak of mysterious symbols etched in stones found nearby, tokens left behind by those who ventured too close to seek answers but instead encountered fear. One cannot help but wonder what lies beneath the cooling surface of this barren ground. Speculation runs wild. Some say it conceals remnants of ancient rituals long forgotten, or perhaps serves as a meeting place for unspeakable entities drawn to darkness itself. The air grows heavy with implied menace. Even those who enter with skepticism often leave with lingering unease etched into their minds. As twilight descends upon Bear Creek and stars begin to twinkle shyly above, there is an undeniable energy surrounding this peculiar clearing, a blend of fear and fascination that binds together all who dare to ponder its mysteries. The empty circle remains both a source of dread and allure, a testament to nature's power to evoke profound emotions through sheer presence alone. In essence, this clearing encapsulates more than just physical characteristics. It embodies a deeper narrative about humanity's relationship with fear and superstition. Whether viewed as mere folklore or something more tangible, it reminds us that not all places remain untouched by shadow, as beautiful landscapes can conceal darker truths hidden beneath their serene facades. Each visitor carries away fragments of this story, an image seared into memory where beauty meets something far more sinister. Lurking just out of sight, the legend of the clearing near Bear Creek, North Carolina, has woven itself into the very fabric of local life, passed down through generations and shaping the community's cultural identity. The narrative surrounding the barren circle tells of the devil himself pacing within its confines at night, plotting malevolent schemes and sowing seeds of chaos. While the origins of this tale remain murky, they are steeped in the region's rich history and the age-old struggle between good and evil, a theme that resonates deeply within human experience. Locals often recount an incident from decades ago that solidified the clearing's sinister reputation. It is said that a wandering preacher once ventured into the woods, drawn by whispers of the supernatural. He claimed to have seen a shadowy figure moving in the circle, its form flickering like candlelight against the darkness. When he emerged from the forest, he was a changed man, his eyes haunted, his voice trembling as he warned others to avoid the circle at all costs. His tale sparked fear and curiosity among townsfolk, eventually embedding themselves into the lore that continues to shape perceptions of the clearing today. Families recite these stories around evening fires, creating a tapestry of horror and caution that captivates children while instilling respect for the unknown. Some say they can hear the devil's laughter echoing through the trees when the wind howls at night, while others claim they've witnessed small objects, like stones or sticks, inexplicably drawn into the circle as if by an unseen force. The very thought inspires both dread and fascination, compelling some to venture closer despite warnings from elders, a risk some are willing to take in pursuit of a thrill or a glimpse into the otherworldly. In addition to these tales, there are accounts of strange lights emerging from within the clearing after sundown. Witnesses describe them as glowing orbs dancing just above the barren ground, pulsating rhythmically in a manner reminiscent of fireflies yet distinctly more eerie. Such sightings have led many to believe that the clearing serves as a conduit for supernatural energy, a gathering ground for spirits or dark entities drawn to its peculiar nature. Local folklore is not solely confined to the adults in town. Children too partake in this storytelling tradition. They concoct their own tales of adventure, weaving in elements of bravery and exploration when recounting their encounters with the clearing. Some dare each other to leave personal items at the edge of the circle, only to find them flung far beyond its perimeter come morning. Each story builds on another, creating a rich tapestry of beliefs that cement the circle's status as a forbidden place where natural laws seem suspended. Elders in Bear Creek also share historical anecdotes about settlers who first arrived in the area. They speak of encounters with Native American tribes who regarded this land with reverence and caution, warning newcomers about a bad spirit that roamed freely in certain parts of the woods. The settlers' ignorance led to a series of unfortunate events, strange illnesses or unexplained accidents that befell those who dismissed these warnings, whether rooted in actual events or fabricated over time. These stories have transformed into cautionary tales reminding residents to respect the power of nature and its unseen forces. As dusk approaches each day, residents often gather to discuss their experiences or explore their theories about the circle's origin and purpose. Some suggest it may serve as an ancient site for rituals long forgotten, others speculate it could be a natural phenomenon, perhaps caused by soil depletion or some geological anomaly. Yet no explanation seems satisfactory enough to quell the unease surrounding it. In recent years, a new generation of thrill-seekers and paranormal enthusiasts has found their way to Bear Creek, eager to document their findings and connect with the legends that have fascinated locals for so long. Their presence has injected fresh energy into old stories and ignited debates among townspeople about the merits of skepticism versus belief. While many locals remain rooted in their faith in the supernatural significance of the clearing, others adopt a more skeptical stance, viewing it merely as an intriguing part of their town's history. Yet even among skeptics, there is an acknowledgement that something extraordinary lingers in that space, a force that defies explanation and demands respect. Thus, the legends surrounding Bear Creek's clearing continue to thrive, simultaneously shaping community identity while inviting both fear and curiosity. They remind us that every place has its secrets, stories born from shadows that linger just out of sight, urging us to remember our connection to nature's mysteries and embrace the unknown with both trepidation and wonder. Each tale shared weaves together past and present, an intricate dance between folklore and reality where belief shapes perception, and perception shapes our world. As the legend of the clearing near Bear Creek has evolved, so too have the strange occurrences that locals attribute to its eerie presence. Residents often share chilling anecdotes about items that mysteriously vanish within the circle, only to reappear in unexpected places, fueling both fear and intrigue about what truly happens within that barren expanse. One of the most notorious stories involves a young boy named Tommy, who lived on the outskirts of town. One summer evening, fueled by a mix of curiosity and bravado, he decided to test the myth for himself. He took his favorite baseball cap, a bright red piece adorned with a local team's logo, and placed it gently at the edge of the clearing before retreating to watch from a distance. He was determined to see if the tales were true. As dusk fell and shadows danced across the forest floor, he felt an odd thrill at being so close to something so mysterious. After spending several anxious minutes watching and waiting, Tommy turned to leave but felt an inexplicable urge to look back one last time. To his shock, he saw his cap lifted as if by an unseen hand, hovering briefly before disappearing into the circle's confines. Panic surged through him as he bolted home, filled with dread at what he had just witnessed. The next morning, in a fit of courage fueled by disbelief, he returned to the clearing in search of his cap. To his astonishment, it was not only gone from the circle but had somehow ended up hanging from a branch of a tree nearly 50 feet away. Well outside its boundary, stories like Tommy's circulate among neighbors like wildfire, each retelling embellished with new details that enhance their mystique. Another resident, an elderly woman named Mabel who has lived in Bear Creek her entire life, recounts how she once lost her cherished locket while walking near the clearing. It was a family heirloom handed down through generations and held deep sentimental value for her. After searching frantically around her home for days without success, she eventually resigned herself to its loss. Weeks later, while visiting her daughter in a nearby town, Mabel found herself perusing an antique shop when she was struck by a sudden sense of recognition. There it was, her locket, hanging delicately among other trinkets on display. She couldn't believe her eyes. After all those weeks without it, how could it possibly end up here? The shopkeeper insisted it had been brought in just days prior by an unknown vendor who'd claimed to have found it in Bear Creek. Mabel couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that somehow her locket had made its way back to her through some supernatural means. Such events have led many townsfolk to approach their belongings with caution when near the clearing. Children dare each other to leave small items behind only to find them hurled far away come morning light, an experience often accompanied by giggles followed by gasps of disbelief as they race back to retrieve their things. One winter night, a group of teenagers decided to test their bravery under moonlight. They left behind random objects. Gloves, hats, even a flashlight placed right at the center of the circle's edge. By morning light, all were returned, but never quite where they had been left. Gloves hung from branches above while hats were found lodged between roots several feet away. Residents also share tales of odd sounds emanating from within the clearing after dark, a low hum or whispering noise that seems almost melodic yet haunting at once. Some claim it is merely wind playing tricks through trees, others insist it is evidence of forces beyond comprehension at work, a resonance tied directly into whatever dark energy resides there. The pattern grows undeniable. Items disappear only to reappear in bizarre locations or not return at all. This cycle perpetuates beliefs about unseen forces lurking near that barren space, the idea that those who tread too closely may risk more than just losing possessions. They could unwittingly invite something darker into their lives. These stories continue circulating through Bear Creek's tight-knit community, from children swapping tales during recess to grandparents sharing warnings over family dinners. The atmosphere surrounding the clearing transforms into something palpable, less an innocent curiosity and more akin to sacred ground marked by both reverence and fear. Many have taken up night vigils near its perimeter. Some come armed with cameras or recording devices hoping for proof, while others merely seek closure or understanding about what they feel is beyond ordinary explanation. The tension builds as dusk settles over Bear Creek, the line between reality and folklore blurring ever more indistinctly as legends intermingle with genuine experiences crafted by collective imagination woven together over generations. Ultimately, these mysterious occurrences linked with Bear Creek's clearing serve not just as fascinating stories but reminders that certain spaces can carry energies we may never fully comprehend, encouraging us all towards deeper contemplation regarding our connection with nature's mysteries and what lies just beyond our perception in shadows cast long ago. Understand the lore surrounding the clearing near Bear Creek. One must delve into the historical context that has shaped the community's beliefs and superstitions. The region is rich with history, marked by the interactions between early settlers, Native American tribes, and the natural environment that has long captivated those who reside there. Each layer of history contributes to the eerie narrative surrounding that barren circle and its association with dark forces. Bear Creek was originally inhabited by indigenous peoples, who revered the land for its natural beauty and resources. These tribes often held spiritual beliefs tied closely to nature, seeing certain areas as sacred or imbued with powerful energies. Historical records indicate that local tribes were aware of the clearing long before European settlers arrived. They described it as a place of caution, warning newcomers about a bad spirit that roamed freely in that part of the woods. Such warnings were rooted in their understanding of spiritual balance and respect for nature's mysteries. When settlers began to populate the area in the 18th century, they brought with them various cultural beliefs and superstitions, often intertwining their narratives with those of the indigenous peoples. Among them was a local preacher who made a name for himself in Bear Creek during the early 1900s. He was known for his fiery sermons about morality and sin, but also had a fascination with the supernatural. His vivid tales of hellfire and damnation included warnings about the devil's presence in the woods, a notion that resonated deeply with the community and contributed to the growing legend of the clearing as a site of malevolent energy. One particularly infamous incident involved this preacher conducting an outdoor revival meeting not far from where the clearing lies today. During one such gathering, he recounted personal experiences that suggested he had glimpsed dark figures in the woods while praying alone at night. His frightened congregation listened intently, and his stories transformed local folklore, embedding fear into the consciousness of Bear Creek's residents. Following his sermons, reports of unsettling phenomena increased: strange noises, flickering lights in the woods, and inexplicable disappearances of items left near the clearing. As Bear Creek developed through the years, it became a hub for various social and cultural activities, town fairs, religious gatherings, and community meetings, all occurring under the watchful eyes of those towering trees surrounding the infamous circle. Each event served to reinforce existing beliefs about local supernatural occurrences. Tales would circulate among townsfolk, often embellished over time. These gatherings fostered a sense of belonging while simultaneously perpetuating cautionary tales that made children wary of wandering too close to that barren expanse. In more recent history, during the 1950s and 1960s, Bear Creek experienced a resurgence in interest as families sought out rural retreats away from urban life. As they explored the surrounding woodlands and shared stories around campfires, spooky anecdotes about the clearing gained renewed traction. Tourists began visiting specifically to investigate claims of paranormal activity, an influx that only deepened local convictions regarding its supernatural significance. Curiously enough, there are also accounts from nearby towns hinting at similar clearings with comparable legends, suggesting that this phenomenon is not isolated to Bear Creek alone but rather part of a broader tapestry of folklore woven through North Carolina's history. Some anthropologists have proposed that these narratives reflect humanity's ongoing struggle to understand unexplained events and confront fears surrounding death and morality. Despite modern advances in science and technology, many locals remain steadfast in their beliefs about the clearing. Skeptics may dismiss such stories as mere superstition or folklore. However, those who hold on to these tales recognize them as essential threads in Bear Creek's identity. The very existence of these legends serves as a reminder of how history can shape present perceptions, transforming ordinary landscapes into sacred ground marked by both reverence and fear. As dusk settles each evening over Bear Creek, whispers about what lies within that barren circle continue to circulate among residents, infusing their conversations with intrigue and apprehension alike. The interplay between historical events, cultural narratives, and collective memory has created a rich tapestry that sustains this legend, a constant reminder that some places are forever marked by stories etched into their very soil. Ultimately, the historical context surrounding Bear Creek's clearing is more than just a backdrop. It encapsulates humanity's enduring fascination with mystery and our desire to connect with forces beyond our comprehension. It stands as a testament to how our past shapes our present, and how even in an ever-evolving world steeped in progress, some legends persist as powerful reminders of our complex relationship with nature and the unknown. The psychological impact of the clearing near Bear Creek is profound, permeating the community's consciousness with a unique blend of fear, curiosity, and fascination. This inconspicuous circle, often described as an ominous void amid the vibrant landscape, deeply influences how residents perceive their surroundings and interact with each other. It has become more than just a peculiar patch of land. It represents an embodiment of the unknown that taps into humanity's oldest fears. For many, the belief in the supernatural power of the clearing instills a palpable sense of dread. Children, enthralled yet terrified by stories shared by elders, often express an instinctive unwillingness to venture near it. Rumors circulate amongst schoolchildren, who trade spine-chilling stories of what happens to those who dare to cross into the circle. These tales amplify not just intrigue but also trepidation, creating a psychological barrier that encourages caution. Lost items transformed into ghostly whispers echoing across tree canopies blend seamlessly with youthful imagination, spurring not just excitement but a healthy fear that urges them to tread carefully in their natural world. Adults grapple with these legends in their own ways. For some, belief in the supernatural provides an explanation for life's uncertainties, an anchor they cling to amidst the unpredictability of existence. The narrative surrounding the clearing involves a tangible figure, the devil himself, an archetype representing chaos and malevolence that resonates across cultures. Many townsfolk find varying degrees of comfort in wrestling with this notion. It allows them to confront darker aspects of humanity while nestling safely within their familiar boundaries. Conversely, skepticism also blossoms among some residents who view these tales and beliefs as superstitious relics from an era steeped in folklore. They may mock or dismiss such notions as mere entertainment, a distraction from mundane life, yet even among skeptics exists an undeniable curiosity about the anomaly. A chill runs down their spines when recounting strange happenings associated with visitors to the clearing, lurkers hearing whispers on silent nights or travelers faintly seeing images flicker just beyond their line of sight. This duality fuels community dynamics. Discussions often pivot between fear and fascination during local gatherings where tales are exchanged over warm meals or bonfires under starlit skies. Those drawn to explore its edges come alive with excitement and uncertainty as they stand before this natural wonder revered by previous generations long gone. The clearing thus becomes not just a geographical location but a focal point for social interaction, a conversation starter igniting spirited debates about belief versus denial. In fact, as darkness blankets Bear Creek each evening, local lore transforms into spectacle. Where once only fearful whispers prevailed now takes on an electrifying energy as thrill seekers arrive from different parts of North Carolina, enchanted by this peculiar space cloaked in mystery. Campsites pop up near its perimeter while stories interlace between laughter and lingering apprehension under moonlit skies. Adventurers daring one another to leave tokens at its center against seasoned warnings. From wary locals still tethered to ancestral knowledge passed down through generations, the psychological ripple extends beyond individuals. The very fabric of Bear Creek's identity is deeply woven into this legend. Festivals once held in celebration morph over time into events focused on horror and mystique thanks to captivating tales cherished by older generations. Townspeople often capitalize on annual gatherings involving festivities tied closely to spooky narratives shared around fire pits. Towards autumn, haunted ghost tours illustrating captivating histories illustrating both past events intertwined with uncanny occurrences grounded in local lore. Despite modern advancements eroding blind faith in many historical beliefs rooted comfortably within tradition, these narratives continue shaping communal ties. A coherent identification amongst diverse individuals drawn together by mystique and curiosity about ordinary places told through extraordinary lenses. This collective consciousness strengthens community bonds while advising temperance when navigating complexities inherent within life, as thresholds marked by specters remind them that intimacy exists between perilous uncertainties hidden among nature's beauty. Overall, exploring how belief in the clearing impacts Bear Creek reveals much about our relationship with mystery and fear itself. Not merely emotion but transformative experiences threading together awareness awakened through every spoken tale that bends around every participant's testimony interwoven beneath humming branches lining tranquil woodlands protecting sacred ground cloaked forever in secrets left unlit beneath stars twinkling bright above landscapes rife with significance awaited patiently just out of reach for centuries gone past since first breath taken by beings arriving across its storied lands long ago. Gain a deeper understanding of the phenomenon surrounding the clearing near Bear Creek. First-hand accounts from locals provide invaluable insights. These interviews reveal a tapestry of perspectives, illustrating how the legend and its associated mysteries shape the lives of those who call this community home. One of the most compelling accounts comes from Clara, a lifelong resident in her 70s, with silver hair cascading down her shoulders. She recalls childhood nights spent around campfires listening to her grandmother's stories. She always said that if you listened closely enough, you could hear the devil's footsteps in the clearing at night. Clara reminisces with a mix of nostalgia and wariness. I was terrified as a child that I remember one night, my friends dared me to leave my doll in the circle to see what would happen. The next morning, it was gone. It turned up 2 streets over in the bushes, a place I had never been. Clara's experience speaks to a broader theme that persists in the community. Those who dare to challenge the unknown often face strange consequences. Conversely, Mark, a self-proclaimed skeptic in his 40s, offers a more rational approach to the same phenomena. "I don't buy into any of it," he asserts confidently, leaning back against the wooden railing of his porch. "It's just nature doing its thing, soil depletion or something like that. Kids amplify their imaginations with ghost stories. It's all just folklore." Despite his skepticism, Mark admits that he feels an unease when passing near the clearing after dark. "I've heard whispers too," he admits reluctantly. "But I think it's just wind through the trees or animals rustling about." His perspective reveals an interesting dichotomy. While he doesn't subscribe to supernatural explanations, even he cannot entirely dismiss the unsettling atmosphere permeating that space. Yet another viewpoint is offered by Laura, a high school biology teacher who enjoys exploring local legends with her students. She encourages them to investigate not only the clearing but also their own reactions to it through scientific inquiry and artistic expression. "The mystery of the clearing is fascinating," she notes passionately. "It taps into deeper instincts, our fear of darkness, our curiosity about what lies beyond our immediate understanding." Laura emphasizes that regardless of whether one believes in ghosts or not, these tales can stimulate critical thinking and creativity among young minds. Then there's James, an avid outdoorsman who has often trekked near the clearing for camping trips with friends that he claims that during one such outing, his group experienced something unexplainable. "We were sitting by our campfire late one night when we saw these strange lights hovering above the circle," he recalls enthusiastically. "They looked like fireflies but were way too big and moved erratically. We couldn't make sense of it." James's story reinforces how deeply embedded this clearing is in visitors' experiences. With awe-inspiring moments that both thrill and terrify, not everyone approaches this legendary space with fear or skepticism. Some embrace it wholeheartedly as part of their cultural heritage. Mary Lou owns a quaint bed and breakfast nearby and often shares ghost stories with her guests eager for adventure. "Many people come here looking for thrills," she explains with a smile while pouring coffee for her visitors. "I embrace it. The more chilling tales I tell them about the clearing, the more they want to explore." For Mary Lou, these narratives are essential not only for tourism but also for keeping tradition alive as she passes them on to future generations. The blend of skepticism and belief richly colors these conversations around Bear Creek's clearing. They illuminate its effect on community identity while highlighting individual perceptions of fear and curiosity. From tales shared around fireside gatherings to moments captured between whispers passed among children at recess, these interviews suggest that belief in the clearing connects townspeople, fostering bonds formed through communal histories interlaced with haunting tales. As dusk approaches each evening over Bear Creek and shadows creep across fields filled with wildflowers swaying gently beneath willowy trees, visitors continue flocking towards this enigmatic space driven by varying motivations, some staring into darkness seeking proof of existence beyond rationality, others merely satisfied relishing their own interpretations. Defined by personal experiences tied together through shared folklore instilling awe, both wondrous joy and layered introspection wrapped in uncertainty, a dynamic interplay where stories collide with lived realities constantly shifting under every moonlit sky above. Ultimately, each encounter and narrative offers layers to consider as part of an ongoing dialogue about humanity's relationship with mystery itself, reflecting back aspects inherent within ourselves while entwining past belief systems. Deeply rooted in local geography transcending time across generations shaping identity amidst eerie beauty found nestled within our very core connected forever by fleeting moments captured amidst reverence within whispered legends left lingering long after footsteps fade along weathered paths worn bare beneath ancient boughs towering ever upward toward infinity calling forth all who dare venture forth into realms unknown. The clearing near Bear Creek serves as a striking natural feature that has significantly influenced local mythology and folklore, embodying broader themes of good versus evil. In many cultures, natural landscapes often become the backdrop for stories that reflect humanity's struggles with morality, fear, and the unknown. The stark contrast between the verdant forest surrounding the barren circle and its eerie emptiness invites contemplation about deeper existential truths that resonate throughout folklore. As residents recount tales of the devil pacing within the circle, they imbue this natural anomaly with a sense of menace and intrigue. The legend takes on an archetypal quality, placing the clearing at the intersection of light and darkness, a battleground where forces of good and evil contend silently beneath the canopy of towering trees. This duality is reflected in the community's narratives. While some view the clearing as a site of malevolence, others perceive it as a cautionary tale meant to instill respect for nature's power and mystery. The absence of vegetation within such a perfect circle raises questions about its origins. Was it shaped by supernatural forces or perhaps by something more mundane? This ambiguity allows for various interpretations, each rooted in cultural beliefs that reflect humanity's attempts to make sense of their environment. Locals often draw parallels between their experiences in nature and moral lessons. For instance, they may see cautionary tales about wandering too close to the clearing as reflections on personal boundaries and ethical behavior in their lives. Indigenous peoples who once roamed these lands viewed nature as an entity infused with spirit and significance, shaping their understanding of good and evil through interactions with their environment. They would warn newcomers about the clearing as a place inhabited by dark spirits, a belief deeply rooted in their reverence for natural elements considered sacred. Such perspectives align with common themes found in folklore worldwide, where certain places are seen as thresholds between realms, where the living interact with spirits or forces beyond comprehension. As European settlers arrived in Bear Creek, they brought their own folklore traditions steeped in biblical narratives, tales saturated with moral lessons that often depicted nature as a battleground for divine intervention against evil. The preacher who popularized stories about the devil's presence in the clearing effectively merged these disparate narratives into a singular mythos that resonates with both indigenous beliefs and settler superstitions. This synthesis illustrates how folklore evolves by absorbing cultural influences while addressing universal human fears, particularly those concerning unseen forces lurking just out of sight. The ongoing fascination with this particular clearing can be seen through its role in local festivals and gatherings where storytelling thrives under starlit skies. These communal events not only reinforce traditional tales but also create spaces for reflection on broader themes encapsulated within them, moral dilemmas faced by individuals navigating life's uncertainties amid nature's unpredictable beauty. Participants often share personal interpretations tied to their experiences, allowing them to explore their own relationships with fear and morality while simultaneously fostering community bonds through shared heritage. Moreover, as modernity encroaches upon rural life, new layers are added to this intricate tapestry of beliefs surrounding the clearing. Tourists drawn by curiosity may visit seeking thrills or encounters with what they perceive to be supernatural phenomena. They contribute fresh energy to existing narratives while simultaneously challenging locals' perceptions of their own folklore. This interaction between visitors and residents highlights how natural features like the clearing serve not just as physical markers but also as catalysts for engagement across generations. A reminder that folklore is alive and evolving. As night falls over Bear Creek, shadows deepen around the clearing, inviting introspection among those who dare approach its edge. The interplay between light from campfires flickering in nearby gathering spots and darkness enveloping the circle creates an atmosphere rich with symbolism. The eternal struggle between knowledge illuminated by flame versus ignorance shrouded in shadow. Each whispered tale shared among friends becomes part of an ever-expanding narrative thread woven into collective history, an acknowledgement that nature holds mysteries beyond explanation. Ultimately, Examining how natural features influence local mythology reveals much about human consciousness itself. It reflects our innate desire to understand our place within larger systems governed by forces beyond our control while grappling with fundamental questions surrounding good versus evil. The clearing near Bear Creek stands not merely as an empty space but rather as a powerful symbol interlaced with meaning, reminding all who encounter it that within nature lies both beauty and peril. Shadows cast long across landscapes serve not only to cloak uncertainty but also illuminate paths toward deeper understanding awaiting exploration. Just beyond reach in recent years, the clearing near Bear Creek has attracted a growing number of adventurers and paranormal investigators, drawn by the legends and stories that swirl around this peculiar site. Equipped with cameras, night vision gear, and an insatiable curiosity, these explorers have ventured into the woods, eager to document any supernatural phenomena they might encounter. One such group, known as the North Carolina Paranormal Society, embarked on an expedition to the clearing. On a moonless night, armed with an array of equipment designed to capture evidence of the unexplained, as they approached the clearing, a palpable tension hung in the air, thickening with each step. The dense forest around them seemed to hold its breath, as if aware of the impending investigation. The group set up base at the edge of the circle, strategically placing infrared cameras to monitor any unusual activity. Jessie, a veteran investigator with years of experience, led the charge. "Keep your eyes peeled and your minds open," she reminded her team. "This place has a reputation for a reason." As night fell, they began their vigil, sharing local legends about the clearing while the darkness enveloped them. Within moments, their equipment began to register anomalies. Jessie noticed that one of the cameras flickered intermittently, an odd occurrence in an area where power sources were scarce. She quickly reviewed the footage and gasped when she spotted what appeared to be a shadow moving just outside the clearing's boundary. "Did you see that?" she exclaimed, excitement mingling with trepidation. The rest of the team gathered around, eyes wide as they replayed the footage. Encouraged by this potential evidence, they decided to step into the circle itself, a decision that would heighten their sense of anticipation and fear. As they crossed the threshold into the barren expanse, an eerie silence enveloped them. Even the usual sounds of nocturnal wildlife seemed muted. It was as if nature had recognized their presence and chosen to withdraw. Once inside the circle, they began using EVP, electronic voice phenomena, devices to capture any disembodied voices that might be present. After several minutes of silence punctuated by nervous laughter and whispered conversations about their earlier findings, a sudden crackling sound echoed through the air, followed by what distinctly resembled a whisper. The team froze, hearts racing as they replayed the recording. "It sounds like it said, 'Leave,'" one member exclaimed, his voice trembling with both fear and exhilaration. Meanwhile, another investigator named Tom wandered closer to the center of the circle, drawn inexplicably to its core. He felt a strange sensation wash over him, a mix of warmth and unease, as if he were standing at a crossroads between worlds. In his mind, he began to reflect on local stories about how items left in the clearing often returned in unexpected places. Suddenly curious, he removed his watch and placed it on the ground. "If anything's out there," he thought, "let's see what happens." When morning light broke through the trees, illuminating the clearing once again, excitement soon turned to confusion. As they packed up their gear and prepared to leave, Tom searched for his watch but was met with disappointment. It was nowhere to be found. The group scoured the area but found no trace of it within or outside the clearing. This mysterious disappearance deepened their intrigue. Was there truly something otherworldly at play? Not far from Bear Creek, another group of adventurers, known as the Seekers, also sought out the clearing for their own exploration. They arrived equipped with ghost hunting apps designed for mobile phones that claimed to detect spiritual energy. Much like Jessie's group, they felt an immediate shift in atmosphere as they crossed into the circle, a sensation amplified by their desire for proof of something beyond mere folklore. As dusk turned to dark night once more, They began conducting their own investigations while sharing personal stories of past experiences with spirits elsewhere in North Carolina, laughter-filled moments between serious attempts at capturing evidence until one member reported feeling a sudden chill as cold air washed over him despite warm temperatures outside. "What was that?" he asked nervously as he pointed toward a nearby tree line where shadows seemed thicker than usual. They turned toward it but saw nothing, just darkness cloaked in silence. The seekers pressed on, determined to continue their exploration despite growing apprehension among their ranks. As they recorded audio clips and took photographs, one member decided to venture closer toward where Tom had lost his watch earlier that day. As he knelt down to inspect the ground where Tom had been standing, he felt a distinct pull in his chest, an urge to stay rooted in that very spot. That he whispered into his recorder, "If there's anyone here with us, can you show us a sign?" Just then, his flashlight flickered before dimming completely. Panic surged among his friends as they rushed toward him while calling out for reassurance amid rising anxiety. The experiences shared by these modern-day adventurers illustrate not only their desire for connection with something beyond reality but also highlight how folklore can bridge generations, unifying beliefs shaped through storytelling across time periods into tangible moments lived out amongst nature's beauty and mystery. As individuals from different backgrounds explore Bear Creek's clearing, whether skeptics or believers, they contribute fresh layers to its ever-evolving narrative while also revealing glimpses into humanity's enduring fascination with what lies beyond our understanding. Each encounter brings forth echoes of history intertwined with personal truths waiting patiently beneath starlit skies, a testament that natural landscapes hold more than mere physical presence. They are vessels for collective memory, shaped through curiosity ignited by age-old tales transcending time itself. The clearing near Bear Creek has evolved into more than just an eerie geographical anomaly. It has become a defining feature of the community's identity, intricately interwoven with its history, culture, and collective psyche. This barren circle stands as a testament to the enduring human fascination with mystery and fear, an embodiment of ancient themes that resonate throughout folklore and mythology. For the residents of Bear Creek, the clearing is a constant reminder of the unknown lurking just beyond their everyday lives. It serves as a touchstone for storytelling, where past meets present, and local legends are shared under starry skies, fostering connections among community members. The myths surrounding the clearing reflect humanity's age-old desire to explain phenomena that elude understanding and control, allowing individuals to confront their fears in a tangible way. As adventurers and paranormal investigators continue to flock to the site, drawn by whispers of supernatural occurrences, they contribute to the dynamic narrative that surrounds this place. Their investigations not only rekindle interest in old tales but also challenge locals to reconsider their own beliefs. For some, skepticism provides comfort, while for others, belief in the supernatural offers an anchor in a world filled with uncertainties. This interplay between belief and skepticism becomes part of the fabric of Bear Creek's identity, evolving continuously as new generations engage with these stories. Furthermore, the clearing acts as a mirror reflecting broader societal themes regarding morality and ethics. The legend of the devil pacing within its confines raises questions about good versus evil that are universally relatable. In grappling with these themes, residents explore their values through the lens of folklore, using cautionary tales about the dangers of temptation and moral failure to guide their conduct in daily life. As they navigate personal boundaries and ethical dilemmas, the stories surrounding the clearing serve as both warnings and lessons, enriching community traditions while ensuring continuity across generations. Additionally, the role of nature in shaping local folklore cannot be overstated. The contrast between the lush forests surrounding the barren circle amplifies its significance. This juxtaposition invites contemplation about life's dualities, beauty intertwined with danger, serenity disrupted by unease. It encourages reflection on humanity's complex Relationship with nature, where landscapes become imbued with meaning far beyond mere physical attributes. As night falls over Bear Creek, shadows deepen around the clearing, a reminder that darkness does not simply cloak but invites exploration of what lies beneath its surface. The stories told around campfires take on new dimensions under moonlight. Laughter mingles with apprehension as community members share both chilling tales and personal experiences shaped by this mystical space. In essence, this clearing encapsulates the human experience itself, a blend of curiosity tempered by fear. It underscores our innate quest for understanding in a world rife with ambiguity and uncertainty. Through collective storytelling born from local history intertwined with natural features like this clearing, we find not only entertainment but also profound insights into our own existence. Ultimately, places like Bear Creek's clearing challenge us to confront what we do not understand, both within ourselves and around us, inviting deeper introspection into our beliefs about good and evil. Each interaction with this site, from tales shared amongst friends to adventures undertaken by those seeking thrills, keeps its legend alive while enriching the broader narrative of humanity's connection with mystery. By embracing both fascination and fear as intertwined elements of our identity, we open ourselves up to exploration not just of physical spaces but also of our culture's vast emotional landscapes, the rich terrain where folklore meets reality, where history reverberates through lived experiences that transcend time itself. The long shadow cast across Bear Creek's landscape serves as a powerful reminder that such places offer pathways toward greater understanding, not only of what may lie hidden in the dark but also within our own hearts when faced with life's enduring uncertainties. Nestled in the heart of St. Francisville, Louisiana, Myrtle's Plantation stands as a striking testament to the region's rich history and complex narratives. This antebellum home, built in 1796, is often referred to as one of America's most haunted locations, its reputation colored by tales of mystery, sorrow, and the spectral presence of Chloe, a slave whose tragic fate intertwines with the plantation's legacy. The plantation is not just a relic of the past, it embodies stories that resonate within the walls and echo throughout its lush grounds. The architectural beauty of Myrtle's Plantation is captivating. Constructed in the Greek Revival style, the house boasts iconic features such as its large columns and wide verandas that overlook the sprawling landscape. Visitors are often struck by the charm of the home, with its whitewashed facade and meticulously maintained gardens that invite exploration. Inside, the rooms are adorned with period antiques, adding to the ambience of a time long gone. Yet palpably present, each piece tells a story, contributing to the sense of history that envelopes those who enter. Located along the banks of the Mississippi River, Myrtle's Plantation was strategically positioned to take advantage of trade and agricultural prosperity. The fertile land surrounding the property once flourished with cotton fields, relying heavily on enslaved labor. This economic backdrop not only shaped the plantation's wealth but also laid the foundation for the personal tragedies that would unfold within its walls. The juxtaposition of beauty and sorrow is palpable. Visitors often feel a poignant connection to those who lived and died there, a reminder of the lives entwined with this idyllic setting. As one walks through the plantation's grounds, it becomes clear that Myrtle's Plantation is more than just bricks and mortar. It is a canvas painted with the hues of joy and despair. Each room holds whispers of familial gatherings and celebrations, but also echoes of despair and loss that seem to linger in the air. The plantation has witnessed countless stories over its 2 centuries, marking it as a pivotal location in Louisiana's history. The lore surrounding Myrtle's Plantation is rich and multifaceted, particularly when it comes to Chloe, whose spirit has become emblematic of the site's haunted reputation. According to legend, Chloe was an enslaved woman who worked in the home and became embroiled in a tragic series of events that ultimately led to her demise. Her tale is one steeped in heartbreak. After being caught eavesdropping on her mistress, she faced punishment that resulted in her taking drastic measures to secure her place in the household. actions that would later haunt both her and those who remained. Chloe's ghost is said to wander the grounds wearing a green turban, a symbol both haunting and intriguing. Visitors report sightings of her spirit drifting through the gardens or peering out from windows dressed in her signature headwear. The image of Chloe serves not only as a haunting figure but also as a reminder of the complex narrative surrounding slavery, the yearning for freedom mixed with an enduring connection to those left behind. The tales of ghostly encounters stretch far beyond Chloe alone. The plantation has garnered attention from paranormal investigators and enthusiasts who flock to St. Francisville in search of evidence of supernatural activity. Many recount experiences ranging from unexplained cold spots to disembodied voices. Echoing through vacant rooms, the atmosphere is charged with energy, an amalgamation of history intertwined with otherworldly phenomena. As visitors listen to these accounts, they may begin to ponder deeper questions about memory and legacy. What does it mean for a place like Myrtle's plantation to carry the weight of its past? How do stories like Chloe's shape our understanding of history? The very act of visiting this historic site prompts reflection on not just what happened here but why these stories continue to resonate today. Myrtle's plantation operates not only as a historical site but also as a living narrative that embodies themes of loss, injustice, and remembrance. It stands as a monument to all those who lived within its walls, a place where lives were intertwined through cycles of hardship and resilience. This duality invites exploration. Visitors come seeking thrills from ghost stories but leave with a more profound understanding of how history shapes our present. In conclusion, Myrtle's plantation is far more than just a haunted house. It is a portal into America's complex past, a place where beauty meets sorrow, where architectural elegance coexists with tales of tragedy. As we delve deeper into its history, exploring both its physical structure and its spectral inhabitants, we uncover layers upon layers of stories waiting to be told. Each visitor's journey through Myrtle's plantation is unique, infused with curiosity about those who came before them and an awareness of how their narratives linger on in our collective memory. As we navigate this captivating space, we are reminded that history is not merely chronicled, it is felt, lived, and forever haunted by those spirits who once walked among us. The heart of the haunting tales woven around Myrtle's plantation is the legend of Chloe, an enslaved woman whose story resonates with sorrow and intrigue. Her life, and the tragic turn it took, forms a crucial part of the plantation's dark legacy. As visitors stroll through the lush grounds, it is impossible not to feel the weight of her narrative, etched into the fabric of this historic site. Chloe's story begins in the early 19th century when she was brought to the plantation as an enslaved person, working under the ownership of the Woodruff family. Like many enslaved individuals of her time, Chloe faced unimaginable hardships. Her duties included various domestic tasks, cooking, cleaning, and tending to the children, while navigating the treacherous reality of life under a system built on oppression and injustice. The mythology surrounding Chloe suggests she was a woman of both beauty and intelligence, traits that likely did little to shield her from the oppressive realities of slavery. One account tells of her being caught eavesdropping on her mistress, a moment that would seal her tragic fate. Feeling threatened by the potential of Chloe's knowledge, her mistress chose to punish her harshly for this perceived insubordination. This act was more than mere punishment. It sent a powerful message reciprocating the dynamics of power and control that defined life on the plantation. In a desperate bid to secure her position and perhaps earn forgiveness, Chloe resorted to drastic measures, which ultimately led to dire consequences. According to legend, she baked a cake laced with poison intended for her mistress and her family, hoping to win favor or at least gain some measure of power over her circumstances. The poison cake resulted in tragedy when it instead harmed her fellow enslaved individuals, leading to their untimely deaths. This catastrophic event sealed Chloe's fate and marked the plantation with bloodstains that some claim can never be washed away. Haunted by guilt and fear after the incident, Chloe sought solace in the very place that became her prison. Some accounts suggest she was Killed soon after by angry members of the plantation's community who had learned of her actions, reportedly, she was chased down and met a brutal end, leaving behind not only secrets of her own but a restless spirit condemned to wander among the living. It is said that Chloe's spirit remains tied to Myrtle's plantation, often described as wearing a green turban, a striking detail that adds to her mystique and serves as a visual representation of her identity. Many visitors have reported seeing an apparition resembling Chloe drifting through the grounds or gazing out from windows. Forever entwined with the story of Myrtle's, the green turban is interpreted in various ways. Some see it as a symbol of resilience, while others perceive it as a reminder of the burdens she carried during her fraught existence. The legend of Chloe elicits powerful reactions from guests who step into her world upon visiting Myrtle's plantation. Many recount stories of phantom encounters, unexplained cold spots in certain rooms, fleeting glimpses of figures disappearing around corners, and sounds of laughter or crying that seem to linger in the air long after they've gone. These eerie occurrences arouse curiosity about Chloe's life and death, provoking questions about memory and the lingering effects of history. What draws people to Chloe's story is not merely its ghostly overtones but also its reflection on the complex realities surrounding slavery and its impact on personal lives. The tale serves as a conduit through which visitors can begin to understand the myriad emotions encapsulated within a bereft history: loss, injustice, and haunting remorse. Furthermore, Chloe's story becomes a focal point for discussions about agency among those who were enslaved. Her actions lead to tragic consequences, yet they can also be seen as expressions of desperation in an oppressive environment, a complexity that often remains overlooked within conventional narratives of slavery. In recounting this legend, one cannot disregard how her choices exemplify resistance against an unjust system, albeit tragically misguided. Myrtle's plantation invites guests to become entwined in these profound stories. As they navigate through rooms steeped in history and echoes of laughter and sorrow alike, they are confronted with remnants of lives lived under harsh conditions. In this way, Chloe's presence becomes more than just a ghost story. It evolves into an exploration of human resilience amidst oppressive circumstances. As tourists engage with stories about Chloe and the other spirits purported to roam Myrtle's plantation, they are encouraged to reflect on larger historical themes that continue to resonate today. What does it mean for those who dwell in shadows yet seek acknowledgement? How do we reckon with tales like Chloe's to form a more comprehensive understanding of our collective past? Ultimately, the legend of Chloe weaves itself intricately into Myrtle's plantation's fabric and expands beyond mere ghostly encounters into areas ripe for historical contemplation. Each visitor leaves with more than just chilling tales of unexplained phenomena. They carry away a heightened awareness of the complexities surrounding humanity's shared history, a history filled with both brightness and shadows, all tied together in ways that continue to shape our present understanding. As the evening sun casts long shadows across the grounds of Myrtle's plantation, a palpable sense of history and mystery envelopes the site, deepening its reputation as one of America's most haunted locations. While the tale of Chloe captivates visitors' imaginations, the plantation's legacy is steeped in an even broader narrative of tragedy and death that contributes to the belief that it is cursed. This alleged curse is marked by numerous untimely deaths, both during the plantation's operational years and in subsequent generations, adding layers to the spectral lore that surrounds this historic home. The first notable occurrence associated with this cursed legacy can be traced back to the Woodruff family, who owned Myrtle's plantation in the 19th century. Over time, members of this family encountered a series of unfortunate events that led to early deaths, some from natural causes while others were shrouded in mystery. The most significant death occurred under tragic circumstances when a young daughter of the family reportedly drowned in a nearby pond. This catastrophe was only one among many and set a grim tone for what many considered to be a chain of misfortune tied to the property. In addition to these personal tragedies, there were accounts of more profound loss. wealthy plantation owners often operated large households packed with both enslaved people and their families. But life on such plantations was fraught with danger, illnesses, accidents, and violent outbursts were common. Enslaved individuals faced brutal treatments which sometimes resulted in untimely ends. Historical accounts suggest that multiple enslaved people died at Myrtle's plantation due to punishment or neglect. Their spirits are believed by some to linger as echoes of suffering, contributing to the haunting stories that entice paranormal enthusiasts and casual visitors alike. Ghostly sightings have proliferated over time, each story adding fuel to the fire of speculation. Regarding the plantation's alleged curse, guests have reported hearing disembodied voices conversing near empty rooms, sobbing sounds emanating from hidden corners, and strange lights flickering in windows late at night. One particularly chilling account involves visitors witnessing figures standing on the balcony, only to disappear when approached. Each encounter reinforces the notion that Myrtle's is not merely haunted by a single spirit but is a tapestry woven from many souls, each carrying a fragment of their unfinished story. The legend of Chloe brings these narratives full circle. Her tragic tale intertwines with others who suffered on the grounds, culminating in a collective narrative that transcends individual experiences. Visitors often speculate about how many lives were lost on this property and how those lives are intrinsically linked through their shared experiences of pain and heartache. Some believe that Chloe acts as a guardian spirit for those who perished within the house, while simultaneously serving as a warning against acts of cruelty and injustice. Furthermore, recounting these events does not merely serve to entertain, it invites reflection on broader societal themes. The deaths at Myrtle's serve as stark reminders of hardships endured during the era of slavery, respecting those who lived and died there while creating dialogue about humanity's dark chapters. Each story connected to Myrtle's plantation becomes an opportunity for visitors to engage with difficult histories rather than gloss over them. Paranormal investigations have consistently drawn attention to Myrtle's so-called curse. Teams equipped with modern ghost hunting technology have sought evidence across different areas of the plantation, from lights flickering without explanation to sudden temperature drops that send shivers down spines. Enthusiasts have documented their findings extensively, creating a vast repository of unexplained occurrences that perpetuate interest in what lies beyond ordinary comprehension. The rumors surrounding Myrtle's plantation also contribute to its allure as a tourist destination for those intrigued by ghost stories and history alike. Ghost tours flourish here as guides share chilling tales of Chloe alongside other spirits said to roam freely within these historic walls. Participants walk through dimly lit halls while listening to whispers carried on the breeze, each narrative carefully crafted to draw them into the plantation's spellbinding history. It is worth noting that despite the spooky tales interwoven with its history, Myrtle's plantation is also seen as a place for reflection and healing. While it stands as a monument to suffering, it also offers individuals a chance for understanding and acknowledgement. A space where conversations surrounding issues like slavery can take root. Visitors often leave Myrtle's plantation not merely feeling entertained by ghostly anecdotes but rather transformed by their experience. The blending of eerie tales with rich historical context leaves behind an imprint far deeper than fleeting thrill-seeking, an awakening to buried truths encapsulated within its walls. They depart carrying a weighty awareness that all lives matter within this landscape. Each individual who walked its grounds contributed to its hauntingly beautiful yet tragic narrative. The mythos surrounding Myrtle's plantation continues to thrive across generations, a testament to humanity's fascination with both life and the afterlife intertwined with tragedy and resilience. As explorers walk away from this storied estate, they are left contemplating not just ghosts in the night but also reflections on their own history, the connections across time that linger even after footsteps fade away into silence. The lingering presence of Chloe and the myriad other spirits said to inhabit Myrtle's plantation have captured the imaginations of countless visitors and paranormal investigators alike. the stories of ghostly encounters are as varied and chilling as they are intriguing, creating a tapestry of experiences that highlight the plantation's eerie reputation. As dusk settles over the historic site, guests often share their personal accounts of inexplicable phenomena, immersing themselves in the haunting atmosphere that surrounds this storied estate. One prevailing account among visitors is the sighting of Chloe herself, described as a spectral figure adorned in a flowing green turban. She is often seen wandering the grounds or peering out from the windows of the plantation house. Many guests have reported feeling an unexpected chill or sensing a shift in energy when they catch sight of her apparition. Some claim to have interacted with her spirit directly, feeling a gentle brush against their arms or hearing soft whispers carried on the wind. These encounters evoke a mix of fear and fascination, prompting individuals to reflect on the history that molds Chloe into such a poignant figure within Myrtle's lore. Paranormal investigators frequent the plantation with equipment designed to detect supernatural activity, seeking evidence that might explain these sightings. One investigation revealed compelling audio recordings during a late-night session in one of the guest rooms. The team captured disembodied voices that seemed to respond to questions posed about Chloe and her life. This auditory evidence stirred excitement among those present, as echoes from the past became almost tangible, offering insight into the lingering emotions tied to those who once inhabited these halls. In addition to auditory phenomena, physical occurrences abound at Myrtle's plantation. Certain areas of the house are notorious for displaying unusual temperature drops, where investigators and tourists alike report feeling sudden cold spots without any apparent reason. One particularly dramatic account details an instance where a group of visitors stood in a hallway when they felt an intense drop in temperature accompanied by unexplained gusts of wind swirling around them. Surprised by this phenomenon, they were left questioning whether they had intruded upon something sacred, an invocation from beyond that beckoned acknowledgement. Beyond experiences tied strictly to Chloe, guests frequently describe encounters with other spirits believed to be linked to the plantation's troubled history. One visitor recounted seeing a shadowy figure standing silently on the balcony, an apparition that vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind an unsettling impression. This spectral presence was reminiscent not only of Chloe but also suggested there may be others who once walked these grounds, a collective of souls trapped between realms. Groups participating in ghost tours often receive first-hand accounts from guides who share chilling stories based on their personal experiences or those recounted by previous visitors. Several guides mention feeling observed while walking through rooms typically associated with Chloe's tragic history. Many describe how they occasionally hear soft sobbing sounds or faint laughter, seemingly echoing through time. These narrations blend history with suspense. Each story serves as an invitation for guests to enter into conversation with what lies hidden within these walls. Visitors also engage with Myrtle's plantation on emotional levels. Many leave feeling deeply touched by their experiences. For instance, some individuals report feeling a profound sense of sadness during their time at the plantation, a heavy emotional weight attributed to sensing unresolved past traumas still echoing throughout the property. This connection highlights how Myrtle serves not only as a backdrop for ghostly tales but also as a conduit through which bygone lives resonate with contemporary audiences seeking connection and understanding. The phenomena experienced at Myrtle's plantation do not merely exist for entertainment. They form part of an ongoing exploration into humanity's relationship with its past, a reminder that historical narratives are never truly complete. Each encounter allows individuals to ponder themes such as loss, justice, and resilience, all interwoven with the broader context of slavery and human suffering. Occasionally, visitors have even discovered objects mysteriously moved or misplaced during their stay, another testament to the belief that active spirits roam within these spaces. Some guests have reported finding personal belongings shifted from where they left them or feeling inexplicably drawn towards certain rooms without prior knowledge or intention. This combination of storytelling and direct experiences not only captivates thrill seekers but also invites deeper reflection on cultural memory and historical injustice. Those who walk through Myrtle's plantation do so knowing they are stepping into layers upon layers of historical significance, each visit elevating both respect for lives lost and appreciation for haunting narratives that shape our understanding today. As word spreads about Myrtle's supernatural allure, interest continues to grow among both tourists and serious paranormal enthusiasts eager for first-hand encounters with both Chloe's spirit and those connected to her tragic fate. The stories surrounding this storied estate serve as powerful reminders that while we may traverse time physically, emotionally we remain connected to all who have come before us, souls whose stories deserve remembrance no matter how deeply buried beneath layers of tragedy. Ultimately, every visitor departs Myrtle's plantation carrying fragments of its legacy with them, a collection of experiences intertwined with tales that transcend mere folklore into reflections on shared humanity and histories yet untold. Whether one believes fully in ghosts or simply finds solace in connecting with long-lost narratives from another time, Myrtle stands as a bridge between past sorrow and present understanding, where every whisper echoes through eternity, beckoning exploration into what lies beyond our immediate perception. The image of Chloe, the enslaved woman whose spirit is said to roam Myrtle's plantation, is indelibly linked to her green turban, a striking emblem that plays a multifaceted role in ghost lore and cultural symbolism. This piece of headwear not only defines her spectral identity but also resonates with deep historical and social meanings that invite exploration and reflection. Its significance amplifies the haunting narrative surrounding Chloe, making her presence on the plantation both poignant and deeply complex. The green turban, as described in numerous accounts of Chloe's sightings, serves as a visual representation of her identity, a symbol that reflects the cultural expressions of enslaved people in the antebellum South. Head wraps worn by enslaved women often signified various significances, ranging from practical considerations to subtle statements of resistance and accumulated knowledge. The colors and styles of these fabrics could denote age, marital status, or even lend a touch of individuality amidst the enforced uniformity of their labor. For Chloe, her green turban may embody both her individuality and the weight of her tragic story. While the turban showcases a glimpse into her life, it also serves as an important narrative device in the ghostly lore of Myrtle's plantation. The color green, often associated with nature, renewal, and vitality, contrasts sharply with the themes of sorrow and death that permeate Chloe's tale. This juxtaposition highlights a deeper complexity within her character. While she may be viewed as a tragic figure steeped in despair due to her past actions and subsequent fate, the green turban suggests hints of resilience and survival. Visitors encountering Chloe's spirit often find themselves grappling with this duality, fearful yet intrigued by the ethereal figure who wanders amidst the tragic remnants of history. Furthermore, Chloe's green turban symbolizes her connection to other enslaved individuals who shared similar experiences on plantations across the South. Stories like hers are not just isolated tales but resonate with broader themes around familial bonds, suffering, and the fight for agency within oppressive systems. Her presence, marked by that vibrant headwear, invites discussions about freedom, memory, and injustice, allowing visitors to contemplate how such narratives continue to echo within contemporary society. In the realm of ghost lore, specific symbols often resonate more profoundly due to their ability to encapsulate essential aspects of a spirit's existence. Chloe's green turban transcends mere ornamentation. It becomes a tether linking past with present, weaving together collective memories of loss and survival. The symbolism surrounding the turban transforms it from simple attire into a marker of identity disrupted by historical trauma, a reminder that each thread woven into its fabric encompasses stories yearning to be acknowledged. As guests recount their experiences encountering Chloe, a spectral being draped in a striking green turban, an emotional weight often permeates their narratives. Some describe feeling an overwhelming sadness wash over them upon glimpsing her ethereal form. Others report an inexplicable connection compelling them to learn more about her life. The mystique surrounding the turban piques curiosity about Chloe's individuality amid collective suffering, prompting reflections on how personal identities often emerge within oppressive systems. Ghost tours at Myrtle's plantation encourage visitors to delve deeper into these themes by sharing folklore intertwined with history. Guides frequently expound upon the significance of Chloe's turban during storytelling sessions, elucidating its cultural implications while inviting participants to engage empathetically with her tale. The symbolism behind this defining article of clothing enriches narratives as stories unfold. Each visitor learns not only about Chloe's tragic journey but also about the struggles faced by countless others like her. Moreover, discussions surrounding Chloe's green turban enable visitors to explore intersections between memory and identity across generations. As they consider what it means for spirits like Chloe to remain visible within contemporary contexts, it fosters broader conversations about historical remembrance and acknowledgement, a crucial component when grappling with America's legacy of slavery. Interestingly, some visitors have taken their fascination with the green turban beyond mere observation. They choose to celebrate Chloe's story by wearing similar head wraps during their visits, not only as homage but as acts reflecting resilience and acknowledgement of shared histories entwined in collective memory. Such gestures serve both as personal tokens of recognition for those who suffered under slavery and as invitations for ongoing conversations about race relations in America. Even today, the continued resonance of Chloe's legend, the sorrow woven through her story alongside the vibrant symbol of her green turban, reminds people that history cannot simply be relegated to dusty books or forgotten tales. Instead, it breathes life into contemporary discussions focused on justice, remembrance, and healing from historical wounds while encouraging future generations to engage thoughtfully with this complex past. The green turban remains a striking image associated with not only Chloe but also themes surrounding transformation shaped through adversity. It encapsulates enduring stories that echo throughout Myrtle's plantation and beyond. Through this lens, visitors are challenged to confront their own connections while reflecting upon history's intertwined yet remarkably individualistic, leaving them moved by both sorrow and hope anchored within those rich narratives that continue to shape our understanding today. Ultimately, as people walk away from Myrtle's plantation carrying pieces of its legacy with them, they take along stories intertwined with meaning beyond mere folklore, realizing that every symbol holds power in shaping perceptions amidst haunting reminders echoing through time. To fully understand the haunting narratives that surround Myrtle's plantation, one must delve into the broader historical context of slavery in Louisiana. The plantation, established in 1796, sits within a region deeply influenced by the legacy of oppressive systems that defined not only its economic framework but also the lives of countless individuals who toiled under brutal conditions. As a significant site in the South, Myrtle's encapsulates the tensions between wealth and suffering, beauty and brutality, a complex narrative shaped by entrenched inequalities. Louisiana's agricultural economy thrived primarily on plantation agriculture, with sugarcane and cotton as dominant crops. This reliance created a vigorous demand for labor, resulting in the importation of thousands of enslaved Africans. By the antebellum period, Louisiana had become one of the states with the largest slave populations in the country. Enslaved individuals were subjected to harsh treatment and dehumanizing conditions as planters sought to maximize profits at any cost. Systems of control through violence and psychological manipulation permeated plantation life, creating an atmosphere where fear ruled. Myrtle's plantation exemplifies this historical backdrop. It was established during a time when slavery was inextricably woven into the social fabric of Southern life. As a family estate of the Woodruffs, Myrtle's became a microcosm reflecting both wealth derived from enslaved labor and the hidden pain that accompanied such prosperity. Stories like Chloe's emerge directly from this societal structure, rooted in her yearning for agency within an oppressive environment that ultimately led to tragedy. Chloe's narrative is indicative of broader themes faced by women who were enslaved during this era. Many were forced to navigate their identities under stringent regimes aiming to suppress individuality while demanding compliance. Their status dictated their personal relationships and aspirations. As a result, women like Chloe found themselves trapped within cycles of servitude without any means for escape or protection from violent consequences meted out by their owners. The legacy of slavery at Myrtles is further compounded by layers of grief associated with loss not only of lives but also of familial connections and cultural traditions disrupted by displacement and cruelty. For instance, many enslaved people were separated from their families due to sales or deaths, leading to fragmented communities where individuals could only cling to whispers of heritage left behind. The presence of spirits purportedly haunting the plantation, including Chloe's, suggests these unresolved traumas continue to resonate long after physical lives have ended. They become part of a living history yearning for acknowledgement amid an often sanitized collective memory. When visitors engage with the legend of Chloe at Myrtle's plantation, they find themselves contemplating how her story embodies these broader historical struggles faced by generations who lived under slavery's weight. Her life trajectory, from servant to ghost, offers insights into what it meant for those marginalized voices seeking recognition amid oppressively systematic structures designed to erase them. The intertwining tales expressed through encounters with ghosts provide avenues for reflections on how such narratives echo through time, even today, in shaping societal attitudes toward race relations and justice. With each sighting reported or story recounted about Chloe or other spirits bound to those grounds, visitors gain access to discussions surrounding ongoing struggles against inequality rooted in long histories. Ghost tours at Myrtles serve not only as entertainment but also as crucial opportunities for education about Louisiana's history. Guides often weave together threads spanning centuries, drawing connections between past injustices experienced by those like Chloe and present-day movements advocating social justice. These stories compel participants to appreciate how history shapes contemporary realities. They illuminate pathways toward understanding lost lives whose echoes linger still within haunted spaces. Moreover, examining these themes encourages visitors not only to recognize injustices inflicted upon others but also pushes them towards greater awareness regarding personal responsibilities in addressing systemic issues still prevalent today. Engaging intimately with narratives surrounding Myrtle's plantation can foster meaningful conversation around race relations and act as prompts for re-evaluation concerning complacency towards ongoing inequities faced by marginalized communities. As visitors reflect on their experiences at Myrtles regarding historical context intertwined with specters once lingering there, they leave carrying memories layered upon collective consciousness enriched through empathetic engagement rather than mere fascination with ghost stories alone. These experiences serve long after leaving behind footprints on those hallowed grounds, a reminder that history remains alive when engaged thoughtfully rather than disregarded entirely. Ultimately, understanding Myrtle's plantation requires grappling with nuanced dimensions inherent within its haunted legacy, addressing how legacies defined by oppression echo throughout generations while simultaneously sparking conversations aimed at fostering healing within society's evolving landscape. Today, therein lies profound significance. Embracing compassion towards all souls locked amidst shadows ensures remembrance extends beyond folklore into advocacy surrounding legacies marking humanity's shared journey towards enlightenment amid lingering darkness across time itself. Myrtle's plantation stands not only as a historical monument but also as a vibrant tourist attraction, drawing visitors from around the country eager to explore its storied past and unique reputation as one of America's most haunted homes. The preservation of this antebellum estate is a delicate balancing act, requiring careful maintenance to keep the building's structural integrity intact while also honoring its complex history. this dual commitment to preservation and education plays a significant role in how the plantation is experienced by guests today. The management of Myrtle's plantation has made it a priority to maintain the authenticity of the site. This involves restoration efforts that reflect the architectural style of the original construction while ensuring that modern amenities are integrated seamlessly, preserving the plantation's charm and historical details, such as its grand columns and period furnishings, allows visitors to step back in time and engage with the space more profoundly. Each room tells a story, filled with artifacts that evoke memories of the lives once lived there. Moreover, Myrtle's plantation operates as a hub for educational programs aimed at illuminating its historical significance and the broader context of slavery in Louisiana. Guided tours are designed to provide guests with insights into the daily lives of those who inhabited the plantation, both free and enslaved. Knowledgeable guides share narratives that intertwine historical facts with local lore, creating an immersive experience that invites reflection on the past. Guests learn not only about the architecture but also about the societal structures that shaped life on the plantation. One of the most compelling aspects of Myrtle's plantation is its reputation for ghostly encounters, which has become an integral part of its tourism appeal. Ghost tours offer visitors a chance to explore the darker aspects of its history while engaging with tales of Chloe and other spirits said to haunt the grounds. These tours are carefully crafted to intertwine historical accounts with ghostly anecdotes, providing guests a unique lens through which to view both the plantation's legacy and its haunted reputation. As visitors traverse the sprawling grounds during these tours, they encounter stories that blend fact and fiction, an exploration into how folklore evolves around real historical tragedies. Guides often recount chilling experiences from previous guests who claim to have seen apparitions or heard disembodied voices during their stay. The excitement generated by these tales enhances visitor engagement, making Myrtle's plantation a memorable destination for those intrigued by both history and the supernatural. Additionally, Myrtle's plantation fosters an environment where meaningful discussions about history can take place. Special events and educational programs invite local scholars and historians to lead workshops that delve into subjects like slavery's impact on Southern society and how cultural narratives are shaped over time. By creating these platforms for dialogue, Myrtle's encourages visitors to consider not just what happened within those walls but also how those events resonate today. The plantation's management recognizes that tourism extends beyond mere spectacle. It offers an opportunity for connection and reflection. Many guests leave Myrtle's with more than just ghostly anecdotes. They depart with an understanding of how intertwined histories shape our present realities. The emotional weight of stories shared during tours often prompts visitors to reevaluate their perspectives on issues related to race, justice, and societal healing. Furthermore, preserving Myrtle's plantation also means addressing contemporary concerns about representation and inclusivity in historic narratives. Efforts are made to ensure that the stories of enslaved individuals are not overshadowed by tales of their owners or sanitized versions of history. Recognizing that voices like Chloe's deserve acknowledgement is crucial in creating a more comprehensive understanding of what life was truly like on plantations throughout Louisiana. As part of its commitment to education, Myrtle's plantation has developed programs aimed at school groups seeking to learn about history through direct engagement with primary sources. Students are encouraged to consider multiple perspectives on historical events, fostering critical thinking skills that extend beyond the classroom setting. By incorporating interactive activities grounded in authentic experiences, these educational initiatives help cultivate a deeper appreciation for history among younger generations. In addition to educational programming and ghost tours, Myrtle's plantation hosts various community events throughout the year, such as agricultural festivals and cultural gatherings. These occasions provide opportunities for local residents and tourists alike to engage with the plantation's history while celebrating Southern culture through food, music, and art. Such events not only enrich community ties but also reinforce Myrtle's role as a living historical site rather than merely a relic frozen in time. Ultimately, preserving Myrtle's plantation as both a historical site and tourist attraction reflects a broader commitment to keeping complicated pasts alive while fostering conversations about their implications today. As visitors walk through its hallowed halls or participate in ghostly explorations, they become part of an ongoing narrative, a story that acknowledges sorrow yet celebrates resilience amidst adversity. This careful stewardship ensures that Myrtle's plantation remains relevant in contemporary discourse surrounding social justice and historical memory. It transforms visits into opportunities for learning, empathy, and connection, reminding all who enter that understanding one's history is vital in shaping future paths toward justice and reconciliation within society at large. Through these efforts, Myrtle strives not only to preserve its storied past but also to inspire meaningful reflections on how we engage with history moving forward. The folklore surrounding Myrtle's plantation plays a pivotal role in shaping public perception, intricately weaving together myths and stories that enhance its reputation as one of America's most haunted locations. These narratives, steeped in tragedy and loss, serve not only to attract visitors but also to provoke contemplation about the complex history of the site. Through the lens of folklore, Myrtle's becomes a living tapestry where historical events meld with ghostly tales, enriching the visitor experience and fostering a deeper understanding of the plantation's past. The heart of this folklore is the legend of Chloe, an enslaved woman whose tragic story resonates through time. Her ghost, often seen wearing a green turban, has become a symbol of both sorrow and resilience, a poignant representation of the struggles faced by those who lived on the plantation. As visitors hear accounts of her spirit wandering the grounds, they are drawn into a narrative that transcends mere ghost stories. It becomes a reflection of broader themes surrounding slavery, injustice, and the quest for agency amid oppressive conditions. The power of Chloe's story lies not only in its emotional weight but also in its ability to evoke empathy from those who encounter it. As guests share their experiences or listen to guided tours recounting the folklore, they often find themselves contemplating the societal structures that enabled such tragedies to unfold. This engagement with Chloe's tale fosters a sense of connection between past and present, prompting individuals to reflect on how these historical injustices echo in contemporary discussions around race and equity. Furthermore, myths associated with Myrtle's plantation extend beyond Chloe's narrative to encompass various ghostly encounters reported by visitors over the years, from apparitions appearing in windows to unexplained sounds resonating through empty rooms. These stories add layers to the plantation's haunted reputation. Each report enhances the allure of Myrtle's as a destination for paranormal enthusiasts and casual tourists alike. The excitement generated by these experiences cultivates an atmosphere where speculation thrives. Guests become eager to share their own sightings or hear others' chilling anecdotes. This communal exploration of the supernatural reinforces an ongoing dialogue about the site's haunted history. Cultural aspects also influence how folklore shapes perceptions surrounding Myrtle's plantation. In Southern culture, ghost stories have long served as vehicles for conveying moral lessons or cautionary tales rooted in local history. At Myrtle's, these stories are imbued with cultural significance that invites deeper inquiry into issues such as memory and legacy. They highlight how narratives surrounding spirits often function as reflections of collective trauma, allowing communities to acknowledge pain while seeking healing through storytelling. Moreover, the interplay between history and myth at Myrtle's plantation underscores how folklore can be employed as a tool for social commentary. By engaging with these haunted narratives, visitors are encouraged to confront uncomfortable truths about America's past, truths that include not just personal stories like Chloe's but also systemic injustices that persist today. This duality allows for an exploration of how historical memory is constructed and preserved within society. It suggests that folklore can be both a means of remembrance and a catalyst for change. Another aspect of the impact of folklore is how it influences tourism at Myrtle's plantation. The plantation capitalizes on its haunted reputation by offering themed events and ghost tours that emphasize its supernatural elements while integrating educational components focused on history. Visitors are led through dimly lit halls and sprawling grounds as guides recount tales filled with mystery and intrigue, each story designed to captivate audiences while shedding light on the painful realities embedded within the property's past. These tours provide opportunities for visitors to engage actively with both history and folklore, creating an immersive environment where learning occurs alongside entertainment. By bridging these two realms, Myrtle's plantation fosters a deeper appreciation for its complex legacy, encouraging guests not only to enjoy ghostly tales but also to engage thoughtfully with the historical context that shapes them. The mythology surrounding Myrtle's plantation further contributes to its allure as a site for research in anthropology, folklore studies, and cultural history. Scholars interested in examining how narratives evolve over time can find fertile ground in exploring how Chloe's tale has transformed from one based on historical fact into a rich blend of myth and memory that captures public imagination today. The ongoing retelling of these stories allows researchers to investigate phenomena such as collective memory formation and societal responses to trauma, all critical aspects influencing contemporary understanding of America's shared past. In addition, this folklore creates opportunities for community involvement as residents engage with their local heritage through storytelling events or festivals celebrating Southern culture. Such initiatives help foster pride among locals while also inviting outsiders to appreciate their unique narratives, adding another layer of richness to Myrtle's plantation's multifaceted identity. Ultimately, the impact of folklore on Myrtle's plantation extends far beyond mere entertainment. It serves as a vehicle for contemplation, education, and connection across generations, through tales steeped in sorrow yet infused with resilience, like those surrounding Chloe. Visitors are encouraged not only to explore ghostly encounters but also to reflect upon how histories shape identities today. As guests traverse this haunting landscape filled with echoes from both past tragedies and spectral whispers lingering in shadows cast by moonlight, each narrative invites ongoing dialogue about justice, remembrance, and healing within our collective consciousness. Engaging thoughtfully with these stories ensures they remain alive amidst shifting contexts while reinforcing their relevance within societal conversations about race relations and historical acknowledgement, moving forward into an uncertain future shaped by enlightenment amid darkness. As we conclude our exploration of Myrtle's plantation, it becomes evident that this historic site embodies a rich tapestry woven from threads of history, memory, and supernatural lore. The plantation stands as a poignant reminder of the complex narrative surrounding slavery and its enduring impact on American culture. It invites contemplation not just of its architectural beauty but of the stories hidden within its walls, stories that echo through time, resonating with themes that continue to shape our collective consciousness. Central to these narratives is the legend of Chloe, an enslaved woman whose tragic fate has become emblematic of the pain and suffering endured by countless individuals who lived under the oppressive regime of slavery. Her ghost, marked by the haunting image of her green turban, serves as a powerful symbol of resilience amid adversity. The story of Chloe transcends mere folklore. It calls upon visitors to engage with the deeper implications of her existence and invites them to reflect on broader societal issues regarding identity, justice, and historical acknowledgement. Visitors are drawn to Myrtle's plantation not only for the thrill associated with ghostly encounters but also for the opportunity to immerse themselves in a complex narrative steeped in historical significance. Each account shared, from disembodied whispers to sightings of apparitions, beckons guests to consider how such experiences shape perceptions about those who have come before us. This interplay between history and folklore enriches the visitor experience, transforming each tour into an opportunity for reflection on personal and collective histories intertwined within American culture. The folklore surrounding Myrtle's plantation also serves as a lens through which we can examine broader societal themes related to memory and legacy. Many guests leave with an understanding that stories like Chloe's are not simply relics of the past but living narratives that inform contemporary dialogue around race relations and social justice. As they engage with these tales, visitors confront uncomfortable truths about systemic injustices while fostering empathy for those whose voices have been silenced throughout history. Furthermore, engaging thoughtfully with the stories at Myrtle's plantation prompts visitors to consider their own roles in perpetuating or confronting historical narratives. The legacy of slavery does not reside solely in textbooks but continues to play out in modern society through ongoing struggles for equity and justice. By recognizing how folklore can serve as both a means of remembrance and a catalyst for change, individuals are encouraged to use their experiences at Myrtle's as starting points for deeper discussions about social responsibility in addressing historical wrongs. Importantly, Myrtle's plantation fosters an environment where educational initiatives intersect with its haunting narrative. Guided tours provide insights into both historical context and paranormal lore, creating immersive experiences that encourage critical thinking among guests. Scholars and historians contribute additional layers by leading workshops focused on topics such as the socio-economic structures that upheld slavery within southern plantations. In doing so, Myrtle's becomes more than just a site of intrigue. It transforms into a space for understanding how legacies shaped by oppression can inform current perceptions surrounding race relations. Moreover, community involvement enhances this educational approach as local residents participate in events celebrating Southern heritage through storytelling festivals or cultural gatherings. These initiatives foster pride among locals while inviting outsiders to appreciate diverse narratives associated with the region, adding richness and depth to Myrtle's plantation's multifaceted identity. As we reflect on our journey through Myrtle's plantation's haunting landscapes filled with echoes from the past, it is essential to consider how these interconnected themes encourage ongoing dialogue about justice and remembrance within our collective consciousness. Every encounter at this iconic site serves as an invitation to explore not only ghostly legends but also histories laden with sorrow yet infused with resilience, through thoughtful engagement with each narrative shared, whether it be tales of Chloe or other experiences recounted by visitors. We are reminded that understanding one's history requires active participation in acknowledging past injustices while moving toward reconciliation today. Thus, every step taken across those hallowed grounds becomes a conscious choice towards embracing compassion for all souls connected by shared experiences etched into time itself. Ultimately, Myrtle's plantation stands as a testament not only to its haunted reputation but also as a vital cultural landmark where conversations around race relations continue to evolve amidst lingering shadows cast by history's weighty presence. As we move forward from this exploration into uncharted futures shaped by enlightenment amid darkness, let us carry forward those stories tied intimately together within our lives. The legacies marked by triumphs and tragedies alike, reminding us that hauntings often reveal deeper truths waiting patiently beneath surfaces. Ready for discovery. The skeptic arrives. The taxi crunched to a halt on the gravel drive, spitting pebbles against the ancient stone facade of Burton Agnes Hall. Alastair Finch emerged, adjusting the brim of his tweed cap against the biting North Sea wind. His first impression was one of sheer, overwhelming history. The house wasn't merely old, it breathed antiquity, a testament to centuries of lives lived and stories whispered within its walls. He surveyed the hall with a practiced eye, cataloging the architectural details, the Elizabethan gables, the mullioned windows, the subtle sag of the roofline that spoke of the building's great age. Beautiful, undoubtedly, but also a rabbit warren of shadows and drafts, perfect for breeding superstitious nonsense. He tugged his suitcase from the boot, the wheels bumping noisily on the uneven ground. Lady Victoria Beaumont greeted him at the heavy oak door, her face etched with a polite but weary smile. "Mr. Finch, Welcome to Burton Agnes. That I trust your journey was uneventful. Perfectly straightforward, Lady Beaumont, Alastair replied, extending a hand. Her grip was cool and surprisingly firm. Though I must confess, the local folklore made for interesting reading material on the train. He couldn't resist injecting a touch of dry amusement into his tone. Lady Victoria's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Indeed, the legend of the skull has been a part of Burton Agnes for rather a long time. She gestured him inside, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous entrance hall. The interior was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of beeswax and damp stone. Portraits of stern-faced ancestors lined the walls, their painted eyes seeming to follow Alastair as he walked. That he couldn't help but feel a slight chill, though he attributed it to the lack of central heating rather than any spectral presence. I hope your accommodations are satisfactory, Lady Victoria said, leading him down a long corridor. I've placed you in the east wing. It's relatively quiet. Relatively quiet, Alastair thought, probably meant close enough to the alleged screaming skull to keep him awake at night. That he suppressed a sigh. I appreciate your thoughtfulness. They reached a large, antique-filled room with a four-poster bed and a view overlooking the manicured gardens. It was undeniably impressive, but Alastair was more interested in the structural details. That he noted the thick stone walls, the small, drafty windows, and the presence of several fireplaces, all potential sources of unexplained noises and temperature fluctuations. Please, make yourself comfortable, Lady Victoria said, indicating a wingback chair near the fireplace. I'll leave you to settle in. Perhaps we can speak more formally after you've had a chance to rest. That would be excellent, Alastair replied, placing his suitcase on the floor. I'm eager to begin my investigation. He used the word deliberately, knowing it would likely grate on her. Lady Victoria's expression remained impassive. I understand that. I'll leave you to it, then. She turned and glided out of the room, leaving Alastair alone with his thoughts and the oppressive silence of the ancient house. That he wasted no time unpacking. That he set up his equipment on a small table near the window, a digital sound recorder, a thermal imaging camera, an EMF meter, and a notebook filled with meticulously compiled data on similar cases. That he was a man of science, of logic, of demonstrable proof. Superstition and folklore held no sway over him. After a quick lunch of sandwiches and tea, Alastair sought out Lady Victoria. That he found her in the library, a vast room lined with towering bookshelves. She was seated at a large mahogany desk, poring over what appeared to be estate documents. Lady Beaumont, Alastair said, stepping into the room. I'm ready to begin my assessment of the skull. She looked up, her eyes reflecting the late afternoon light filtering through the tall windows. Very well, Mr. Finch. It's in the wall of the Great Hall. It has been there for centuries. She paused, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face. Though I confess, I still find the prospect of disturbing it unsettling. Alastair raised an eyebrow. Unsettling? Surely, after all this time, you've grown accustomed to its presence. One never truly grows accustomed to the inexplicable, Mr. Finch, she replied, her voice tinged with a subtle weariness. Come, I will show you. They walked in silence to the great hall, a vast, imposing space dominated by a massive fireplace and a long, polished dining table. Lady Victoria led him to a section of the wall near the fireplace, where a small, stone-lined alcove was visible. This is it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Alastair approached the alcove cautiously. Inside, nestled amongst the stones, was a human skull. It was old, undeniably so, the bone yellowed and brittle with age. He reached out a gloved hand and gently touched the skull. Remarkable, he said, more to himself than to Lady Victoria. The bone density suggests it's been here for at least 400 years. The skull looks naturally weathered, yet carefully, almost reverently, placed. Lady Victoria watched him intently, her expression unreadable. "Do you have any theories, Mr. Finch?" Alistair straightened up, turning to face her. "Theories? At this stage, I have only observations, Lady Beaumont, but I assure you, I intend to formulate a thoroughly scientific explanation for this phenomenon." He took a step back, surveying the great hall with a critical eye. "The acoustics in this room are quite remarkable," he noted. "Any sudden noise could easily be amplified and distorted, creating the illusion of a scream." He then examined the surrounding walls, noting the presence of several cracks and crevices. And these structural weaknesses could also contribute to unusual vibrations and sounds. Lady Victoria listened patiently, her arms folded across her chest. "So, you believe the legend of the screaming skull is nothing more than a trick of the acoustics?" "It's a possibility I intend to explore," Alistair replied, his eyes gleaming with intellectual excitement. "But I assure you, Lady Beaumont, I will leave no stone unturned in my pursuit of the truth." He glanced back at the skull, a flicker of doubt momentarily clouding his confidence. The silence of the great hall seemed to press in on him, heavy and expectant, that he told himself it was merely the weight of history, the oppressive atmosphere of the ancient house. But a small, nagging voice whispered in the back of his mind, reminding him that some mysteries defy explanation, that some legends refuse to be debunked. Whispers of the past. Alistair spent the morning lost within the hall's archive, a repository of age-worn vellum and leather-bound tomes that exhaled a musty odor of dust motes and long-dormant secrets. The Griffith family's history unfurled across the parchment in a sprawling, tangled web, its roots sunk deep into East Yorkshire soil that he meticulously followed in Griffith's line, noting her birth date, her tragically brief existence, and the circumstances surrounding her violent end. Official accounts depicted a botched robbery, a savage act committed by common thieves, yet local lore painted a vastly different portrait, one of broken vows and stark betrayal. He painstakingly transcribed excerpts into his notebook, the scratch of his pen a constant companion as he filled the pages with names, dates, and oblique entries culled from ancient journals. He cross-referenced these historical narratives with regional folklore, seeking corroboration, some tangible nexus between myth and verifiable fact. As he burrowed deeper, the distinction between the two grew increasingly indistinct. By lunchtime, Alistair felt the palpable weight of the past settling upon him. Stepping from the archive, he squinted against the sudden glare of the hall. Lady Victoria was absent. He discovered Mrs. Peterson, the housekeeper, burnishing a silver candelabrum to a glittering sheen within the dining room. "Mrs. Peterson," Alistair inquired, "I'm hoping you might answer a few questions about your time here at Burton Agnes." The housekeeper straightened, her face a canvas of weariness tinged with inquisitiveness. "About the skull, I imagine," she murmured, her voice hushed. "Yes, and any other oddities you may have experienced." Mrs. Peterson hesitated, her gaze darting around the room as if fearing eavesdroppers. "Well, there have been things transpiring, primarily sounds, footfalls echoing on the upper stories when the rooms are empty, doors swinging shut of their own accord. An icy current in certain chambers, even during the sweltering heat of summer." "And have you ever actually witnessed anything?" Alistair probed, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Not exactly seen, but sensed a presence nearby. As if one is perpetually under observation." She shuddered, despite the room's comforting warmth. "It intensifies around the anniversary of Anne Griffith's demise. That's when the banshee wails begin, so the story goes." Alistair meticulously logged her testimony, maintaining a deliberately impartial facade. "Thank you, Mrs. Peterson, your insights are invaluable." Following lunch, Alastair sought out Maggie Armitage, the area's historian, who was employed part-time at the hall, conducting tours and overseeing the gift emporium. He located her behind the counter, amidst a colorful display of postcards and miniature plastic skulls, each frozen in a silent scream. "Mr. Finch," Maggie greeted him, a welcoming smile gracing her lips. "Come to hear more of our little dramas, have you?" "Precisely," Alastair responded. "I'm attempting to grasp the full dimensions of the legend surrounding Anne Griffith and her skull." Maggie leaned against the counter, her eyes gleaming with amusement. "Ah, Anne's saga. It certainly holds a certain fascination, doesn't it? A vibrant young woman, extinguished before her time, her soul irrevocably linked to this estate. Could you elaborate on the manifestations?" Alastair inquired, adopting a neutral tone. Maggie chuckled softly. "Manifestations, that's one way to describe it. Of course, there's the screaming, the most renowned aspect of the tale, but there are other whispers, too. The delicate fragrance of lavender, Anne's favorite bloom, said to permeate the chamber she once inhabited, objects shifting inexplicably, and that unsettling feeling of being watched, a constant companion within these walls. Do you personally subscribe to a belief in ghosts, Miss Armitage?" Alastair asked, cutting to the chase. Maggie paused, her gaze drifting towards Anne Griffith's portrait above the hearth. "I believe in the enduring power of stories," she declared finally. "I believe that places can absorb memories, that emotions can leave indelible imprints, and I believe that Anne Griffith held such a deep affection for this hall that a part of her never truly departed." Alastair nodded, internalizing her words. He understood that belief exerted a considerable influence, capable of shaping perception and molding reality. He took careful notes, capturing her subtle inflections and figures of speech. He would later dissect her account, separating genuine impressions from the elaborations of popular legend. He retrieved his instruments from his satchel: a digital EMF meter, an infrared thermometer, and a highly sensitive audio recording device. Maggie observed with rapt attention as he outlined each device's function, detailing his intention to measure and document any atypical energy signatures, temperature anomalies, or unexplained auditory phenomena. "So, you intend to determine whether Anne is truly present?" she queried, her expression a melange of hope and skepticism. "I intend to gather data," Alastair corrected her. "And then, I will subject that data to rigorous analysis to ascertain whether it corroborates or refutes the prevailing narrative." Maggie smiled knowingly. "Well, I wish you fortitude, Mr. Finch, because some things," she paused, lowering her voice to a confidential murmur, "cannot be quantified by machines." Scientific scrutiny. Alastair arranged his equipment meticulously on the sturdy oak table before the skull. His electromagnetic field meter, a device he affectionately called the EMF sniffer, sat poised like a hunting dog, ready to detect any anomalies. Beside it, the ion counter hummed softly, awaiting a surge in atmospheric electricity. A thermal imaging camera, its lens gleaming under the weak afternoon sun filtering through the stained glass window, completed his arsenal. He ran a baseline reading, meticulously documenting the ambient levels of electromagnetic radiation, ion density, and temperature fluctuations in the room. The skull itself sat silent, a pale ivory dome amidst the technological clutter. He felt a prickle of anticipation, not of fear or excitement, but of scientific curiosity. Would his instruments register anything unusual? Or would this entire escapade prove to be a colossal waste of time and resources? Alastair started with the EMF meter, slowly sweeping the probe around the skull, inch by inch. The needle remained stubbornly steady, hovering around the baseline reading. He adjusted the sensitivity, pushing the device to its limits, but still nothing. The EMF sniffer remained unimpressed. Next, he turned to the ion counter. He remembered a case in Cornwall where a supposed haunting correlated with spikes in negative ion concentration. But here, at Burton Agnes Hall, the air remained stubbornly neutral. No ghostly ions lingered around in Griffith's skull. Finally, the thermal imaging camera. Alistair expected at least a slight temperature anomaly, a cold spot perhaps, or an unexplained heat signature. Again, the screen remained stubbornly monochrome, displaying a uniform temperature distribution across the skull's surface. No telltale sign of ectoplasmic energy, no phantom chill, just bone. Alistair sighed. A puff of air that ruffled the carefully arranged papers on the table. He checked and rechecked his equipment, ensuring everything was properly calibrated and functioning. He repeated the tests, varying the parameters, adjusting the angles, even whispering a few provocative questions towards the skull, hoping to elicit some kind of response. Nothing. Hours passed, marked only by the creeping shadows lengthening across the room and the dwindling afternoon light. Alistair's back ached from hunching over his instruments. He scribbled notes in his journal, meticulously documenting each test, each measurement, nothing. He collected the data, transferred it to his laptop, and began the tedious process of analysis. He ran statistical regressions, looking for correlations, deviations, anything that might suggest an anomaly. He filtered the data, smoothed it, amplified it, dissected it. The results were clear, unambiguous, and utterly disappointing. There was no statistically significant deviation from the norm. No unusual electromagnetic fluctuations, no ion spikes, no temperature anomalies. The skull, at least according to his instruments, was perfectly inert. Lady Victoria entered the room as Alistair was packing up his equipment, her face etched with a mixture of weariness and cautious hope. "Well, Mr. Finch?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Did you find anything?" Alistair met her gaze, his own face a mask of professional neutrality. "Lady Victoria, I've conducted a thorough investigation using state-of-the-art scientific equipment. The data I've collected shows no evidence of any paranormal activity associated with the skull." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "That's not to say that nothing is happening, but whatever it is, it's not something my instruments can detect. There could be subtle magnetic field variations, low-frequency sound waves, or any number of natural phenomena that might be contributing to the perceived experiences." Lady Victoria's shoulders slumped slightly. "So, you don't believe it's haunted?" "I believe," Alistair said, carefully avoiding the word ghost, "that the events surrounding the skull can be explained by natural causes, or perhaps, heightened suggestibility. The power of belief is a potent force, Lady Victoria, especially when combined with a centuries-old legend." Lady Victoria walked slowly towards the skull, her gaze fixed on the pale bone. "But I've heard it, Mr. Finch. I've heard the screaming." Alistair cleared his throat. "Auditory hallucinations can be triggered by a variety of factors, Lady Victoria, stress, sleep deprivation, even infrasound, and the mind, as we all know, is capable of playing tricks on us." He offered her a small, reassuring smile. "My report will detail my findings, of course, but I must reiterate, from a purely scientific perspective, there is no objective evidence to support the claim that the skull is haunted." Lady Victoria sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of generations. "I suppose I expected as much. Science rarely offers the answers we truly seek, does it?" Alistair didn't respond. He knew that Lady Victoria wasn't really talking to him. She was talking to the skull, to the legend, to the ghosts of her own past, and those were conversations that science couldn't touch. End story. Alistair pushed back from the mahogany desk in the library, his eyes gritty. Hours spent poring over parish records, old letters, and brittle newspaper clippings had yielded a fragmented, yet poignant, picture of an Griffith, born in the mid-16th century, and, along with her sisters, had been instrumental in transforming Burton Agnes from a medieval manor into the Elizabethan masterpiece it was today that he learned of her sharp wit, her love for gardening, and her unwavering devotion to her home. The letters, penned in elegant script, revealed a deep emotional connection to the hall. She wrote of the gardens as extensions of her own soul, the stone walls as protective arms, and the very air within as infused with life. One particular passage caught his attention. Should I ever leave this earthly realm, my spirit shall forever yearn for the embrace of Burton Agnes. Alastair sighed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair, that he found no mention of a violent death, no indication of a curse, nothing to scientifically explain the legend of the screaming skull, only the echoes of a woman's profound love for her home. That he found Maggie dusting a display case in the drawing room. "Find anything interesting, Mr. Finch?" she asked, her voice warm and laced with a hint of knowing amusement. "A lot of history, Maggie, but nothing that screams paranormal phenomenon," Alastair replied, a wry smile playing on his lips. "Just a woman who clearly adored this place." Maggie paused, her gaze drifting towards the ornate ceiling. "She did, more than anything, and that's why she's still here, in a way." Alastair leaned against a nearby table, intrigued. "Tell me more about that." Maggie lowered her duster and approached him, her eyes twinkling. "Well, the story goes that and was traveling, visiting family, when she was set upon by rogues, badly beaten. She was near to death. As she lay there, fading fast, she begged her sisters to promise her that when she died, her head would be brought back to Burton Agnes. She said it was the only way her spirit could find peace." Alastair frowned. "That's quite a request. Did they honor it?" Maggie's expression clouded. "They did not. Greedy things. They wanted to keep her jewels and fine clothes. They buried her whole, far away from here. But that very night, strange things started happening at the hall. Sounds, unnatural sounds, whispers on the wind, objects moving on their own. The villagers whispered that and was restless, that she hadn't found her peace." "And the skull?" Alastair prompted. Maggie lowered her voice. "That came later, after more strange happenings. One of the sisters had a terrible nightmare, and appeared to her, gaunt and accusing, demanding to be brought home. The sister, terrified, confessed everything to the village priest. He, wise in the ways of folk remedies, advised them to exhume Anne's body and bring her skull back to Burton Agnes. They built it into the walls, hoping to appease her spirit." Alastair considered this, his scientific mind grappling with the folklore and the screaming. Maggie shivered. "Despite the warmth of the room, that started, so the story goes, when anyone tried to remove the skull, piercing screams, they say, enough to curdle your blood. Some claim the house itself weeps. Farmers tell of crops failing if the skull is disturbed, of livestock dying mysteriously." Alastair frowned. "Has anyone actually tried to remove it recently?" "Not that I know of. Most folk around here wouldn't dare. There's a respect, you see, a fear, maybe, but mostly, a respect for Anne and her wish to be home." Maggie met Alastair's gaze, her eyes holding a depth of conviction. "It's more than just a story, Mr. Finch. It's part of who we are here. It's in the soil, in the stones, in the very air we breathe." Alastair nodded slowly. He might not believe in ghosts or curses, but he couldn't deny the power of the story, the profound impact it had on the community. It was more than just superstition, it was a living narrative, woven into the fabric of their lives. He felt a pang of something akin to understanding, a glimmer of empathy for Lady Victoria's unwavering belief. Science, he realized, couldn't always account for the emotional weight of a legend, the way it shaped perceptions and fueled experiences. "Thank you, Maggie," he said sincerely. "That gives me a lot to think about." He turned back towards the library, the image of Anne Griffith's yearning words echoing in his mind. The scientific puzzle remained unsolved, but the human story was becoming increasingly clear, and perhaps, he mused, the key to understanding the legend lay not in proving or disproving the paranormal, but in understanding the enduring power of love, loss, and the yearning for home. A hall in need. Lady Victoria exhaled, the deflated sound echoing the estate's dwindling fortunes, leaving the tapestry room, its antique threads a silent testament to bygone hunts. She ushered Alistair into a more intimate parlor. Here, the curated facade crumbled. A cracked teacup resided near a precarious tower of overdue invoices, a stark dissonance against the hall's polished veneer. "Your discretion is appreciated, Mr. Finch," she murmured, her voice a breath. Outside, the afternoon sun, slicing through leaded glass, illuminated motes dancing in the air, each a miniature testament to time's relentless erosion. But the hour for pleasant pretense has passed. Alistair settled gingerly on an aged armchair, its velvet worn smooth by generations of worry. "Indeed, Lady Victoria, my findings, or the absence thereof, are confidential. I must admit, however, Burton Agnes projects an image of affluence." A humorless laugh escaped her. "Appearances, Mr. Finch, are deceptive masks. The hall is a ravenous beast, repairs, maintenance, staff, a constant struggle against decay. We are hemorrhaging funds." Victoria drifted to the fireplace, its ornate stonework etched by age, and rested her hand against the cool surface. "The skull, yes, it attracts visitors, but it also invites a certain breed of attention. A garish sensationalism. We've seen trespassers seeking paranormal thrills, defacing the gardens, even attempts to force entry. A double-edged blade, Mr. Finch, keenly sharpened." Alistair's brow furrowed. He hadn't fully grasped the practical consequences of the legend, the disruptive force it unleashed on the fragile equilibrium of an ancestral home. Fixated on the scientific absurdity, he had overlooked the human toll. "So, the legend, a mixed blessing, then?" he proposed. "Precisely," she conceded, turning, her face etched with weariness. "We attempt to manage it, to frame it within the hall's grand narrative, but the line between historical interest and ghoulish curiosity blurs easily, and the press they feast on the lurid, the grotesque. Controlling the story becomes impossible." She lifted the flawed teacup, studying it with detached interest. "My husband, before his death, he dedicated his life, and his inheritance, to this place, his family's heritage." Her voice faltered. "I vowed to sustain it." Alistair shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the detached skepticism he usually favored. Before him stood a woman, bowed by duty, clinging to a legacy threatening to dissolve around her. "Have you explored alternatives?" He ventured carefully. "Endowments, perhaps, philanthropic contributions." Victoria shook her head, a gesture of defeat. "Every avenue exhausted. Grants are fiercely contested and often laden with demands that compromise the hall's essence. Donations, well, people are more inclined to support ventures they deem worthy. A haunted mansion hardly embodies charity, does it?" She placed the teacup down with a sharp click. "Sometimes, I question if she is not merely a tale, but a warning. A reminder that some things are best left undisturbed, that clinging to the past can be perilous." The air grew thick, laden with unspoken anxieties. Alistair felt a strange, almost empathetic, shiver. He saw beyond the imposing facade of Burton Agnes Hall, beyond the myth of the screaming skull, to the fragile, aching heart of the place. "And the skull itself, have you ever entertained its removal?" Alistair inquired. Victoria recoiled, as if physically struck. "Never. That's unthinkable. The tales, the repercussions, no. We wouldn't dare." He grasped, now, the true power of the legend. It wasn't simply about nocturnal cries or phantom visitations. It was about dread, about custom, about the burden of history. It was about a community united by a shared conviction, a conviction that, irrespective of its truth, had become woven into their very identity. Alistair rose, his skepticism waning. not due to any spectral occurrence, but because of something infinitely stronger, the human yearning for stories, for meaning, for a bond to what came before. He had arrived at Burton Agnes Hall seeking to debunk a myth. He was beginning to understand he had stumbled upon something far more profound, a crumbling estate, and a story that was both its undoing, and, perhaps, its only redemption, the test. "I propose an experiment," Alastair declared, his words echoing in the great hall's oppressive atmosphere. Embers popped in the fireplace, their erratic dance a sardonic commentary on the notion of clinical study within these time-worn walls. Lady Victoria, previously lost in the fiery depths, pivoted towards him, her face an inscrutable mask. "An experiment?" she queried, the question tinged with both resignation and trepidation. "Precisely. A controlled environment that we relocate the skull." He paused, allowing the proposition's gravity to sink in. "To an anechoic chamber, document all manifestations, isolate variables, ascertain, once and for all, the veracity of the legend." Victoria's complexion faded, the fine lines around her eyes etching themselves deeper. "Move it, do you comprehend the potential repercussions?" "I am acquainted with the lore," Alastair countered softly. "And I appreciate the necessity for irrefutable evidence. A secure site within the hall itself, stout walls, minimized resonance, impermeable to external noise." He witnessed the internal conflict roiling within her, the deep-seated fear, stories whispered through generations of impending doom, pitted against the desperate yearning for resolution, for a means to reclaim her existence and her ancestral home. "And if something were to occur," she breathed, her voice barely audible. "We will chronicle it, dissect it, comprehend it. Or we will demonstrate it to be nothing more than suggestion and aberrant acoustics." Alastair infused his tone with as much conviction as he could muster, despite a disquieting tremor that ran through him. He attributed it to the hall's very essence. Victoria's eyes shut for a protracted moment. Upon reopening, a spark of determination had ignited. "Very well," she conceded, her voice now imbued with newfound strength. "But should anything go awry?" "I accept complete accountability," Alastair avowed, though he wasn't entirely certain what that entailed. The chosen chamber resided in the most ancient section of the manor, a bygone storage area adjacent to the kitchens, its formidable stone construction and diminutive, latticed window rendered it optimal. Maggie, her countenance etched with worry, assisted in preparing the space, lining the walls with dense, sound-dampening material in movements both languid and reverential. "Are you quite sure about this, Mr. Finch?" she inquired, her gaze searching his. "Some things are best left in peace." "Certainty is a luxury I seldom possess, Maggie," he responded, attempting a lighter tone. "But I believe this to be the most pragmatic path forward." Maggie exhaled deeply, the expelled air seeming to carry the weight of centuries. "Logic holds little sway here, sir." A tangible tension permeated the air as they readied for the transfer. Alastair meticulously inspected his instruments, audio recorders, vibrational sensors, electromagnetic field monitors. A knot of anticipation tightened within him. This was it, the crux of the matter. Or, perhaps, utter folly. The skull rested within its alcove in the Queen's chamber, bathed in the mellow light of the afternoon sun. Sifting through the stained glass panels, its empty socket seemed to fix on him, accusing him of arrogance. Alastair swathed the skull in layers of protective cloth with great care. He could perceive the smooth, frigid surface beneath his fingertips, a subtle echo of Griffith's life. As he raised it, he braced for a shriek, a cataclysm, the unleashing of ancient wrath. Yet, silence reigned, only the quiet heft of bone filled his hands. He bore it carefully, followed by Victoria and Maggie, their faces gaunt and ashen. The transit through the hushed hallways resembled a procession to a crypt. Each creak of the floorboards, each sigh of wind from the outside, seemed magnified, Heavy with unspoken foreboding, within the readied room, Alistair gently placed the skull upon a velvet cushion at the center. He connected the sensors, adjusted the recorders. The silence was almost unbearable, a stifling shroud enveloping them. He regarded Victoria, her eyes wide with trepidation. He regarded Maggie, her lips moving in silent supplication. He drew a deep breath. "Ready?" he queried, his voice a bare rustle. Victoria offered a slow nod. Maggie merely closed her eyes. Alistair activated the recorders. The red indicator winked on, a silent watchman in the gathering gloom. He retreated, joining the women near the portal. They waited, the silence stretched, unyielding. Minutes crept by, each one an age. The sole sound was the faint hum of the devices, a sterile counterpoint to Burton Agnes Hall's age-old stillness. And then, just as Alistair was beginning to experience a twinge of disappointment, a prickle of something altogether different coursed down his spine. The air within the chamber seemed to thicken, to thrum with unseen energy. He stole a glance at Victoria, whose grip on Maggie's arm had whitened her knuckles. Maggie's eyes remained closed, her lips still moving silently, and then, a sound emerged, not a scream, not yet, but a low, guttural lament, emanating from the very core of the skull. A sound that seemed to vibrate not only in the atmosphere, but within the building's very framework. Alistair felt his skepticism falter, supplanted by a frigid, encroaching dread. He had sought validation, he had sought answers, he wasn't certain he desired them any longer. Cold embrace. With the lament still echoing faintly in the hallway, Alistair steeled himself. He was a scientist, damn it. He dealt in facts, in measurable phenomena. This was atmosphere, heightened by suggestion and centuries of embellished storytelling. "Right," he said, his voice sounding far too loud in the oppressive silence that had fallen after the skull's mournful cry. He gestured towards the padded carrying case. "Let's get this done, carefully, now." Lady Victoria, pale and drawn, merely nodded. Maggie, however, crossed herself, her lips moving in a silent prayer. Alistair chose to ignore it. He and one of the estate workers, a burly man named Peter, carefully lifted the skull. Even through the protective gloves, Alistair felt a strange lightness to it, almost as if it were hollow, or made of some material other than bone. He dismissed the thought as fanciful. As they cradled the skull towards the case, a sudden, biting chill swept through the room. It wasn't a gradual onset of cold air, it was an instantaneous, penetrating freeze that seemed to seep into their very bones. Alistair gasped, his breath clouding before him in the suddenly frigid air. Peter swore under his breath, his face tightening with discomfort. "What in God's name?" Lady Victoria whispered, clutching her arms to her chest. Maggie's eyes widened, her gaze fixed on the skull in Alistair's hands. "It doesn't like being moved," she said, her voice barely audible. Alistair, struggling to maintain his composure, tried to rationalize the inexplicable drop in temperature. A draft, perhaps, but the room was sealed, the windows closed and latched, and even if there were a draft, it wouldn't explain the sheer intensity of the cold. Then, the lights flickered. A low hum filled the air, followed by a stuttering, erratic dance of light and shadow across the room. The ornate chandelier swayed gently, casting grotesque, elongated figures on the walls. The sudden darkness and light played tricks on the eye, making the skull seem to shift and writhe in Alistair's grasp. Peter stumbled back, nearly dropping his side of the case. "I don't like this," he muttered, his voice trembling. "I really don't like this." Alistair, fighting a rising tide of panic, tightened his grip on the skull. He could feel the cold radiating outwards, numbing his fingers. Despite the gloves, he had to get it into the case, had to isolate it, had to regain control of the situation. "Just a power surge," he said, trying to sound reassuring, though his own voice wavered. "Probably just a coincidence." But even as he spoke the words, he knew they were hollow. He saw the fear in Lady Victoria's eyes, the abject terror in Peter's, the knowing apprehension in Maggie's. This wasn't a coincidence, this was something else he and Peter, with jerky, uncertain movements, managed to lower the skull into the padded case. As the lid closed, plunging the skull into darkness, the flickering intensified, the humming grew louder, morphing into a high-pitched whine that set Alistair's teeth on edge. Suddenly, the lights went out completely, plunging the room into absolute darkness. A collective gasp filled the void. Alistair could hear Lady Victoria's ragged breathing, Peter's muttered prayers, Maggie's low, mournful humming, a counterpoint, perhaps, to whatever force they had disturbed. The generator, Alistair said, his voice strained. The backup generator should kick in any second. But the second stretched into an eternity. The darkness remained absolute, heavy, and suffocating. The cold intensified, a bone-chilling presence that seemed to press in on them from all sides. Then, a new sound emerged from the darkness, a soft, almost imperceptible rustling. It seemed to be coming from inside the case. Alistair froze. Every muscle in his body tensed as he strained his ears, trying to discern the nature of the sound. It wasn't the sound of bone against padding. It was softer, more organic. Then, he heard it. A faint, wet click. His heart hammered against his ribs. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that something was happening inside that case, something he couldn't explain, something he couldn't control. Finally, with a shuddering groan, the backup generator sputtered to life. A weak, yellow light filled the room, revealing the faces of his companions, etched with fear, illuminated by the flickering emergency lamps. Alistair's gaze was drawn immediately to the carrying case. It sat on the table, innocuous, almost innocent, but the rustling hadn't stopped. It was louder now, more insistent, and accompanying it, a new sound, barely audible above the hum of the generator, a faint, wet gurgle, the scream. The darkness in the room was a suffocating blanket, a palpable weight that constricted Alistair's chest. From within the sealed container came the persistent throb, an unnerving, organic pulse that he gulped, the acrid taste of apprehension stinging his palate. Lady Victoria, her countenance ashen in the meager light from the corridor, gestured towards the box. "Very well. Let's proceed." Her tone, a fragile murmur, lacked its usual commanding timbre. Maggie edged forward, her fingers hovering above the object. "Are you certain, Lady Victoria? A change of heart is still permissible." "No," came the sharp reply, a sudden resolve hardening Lady Victoria's features. "It must be done. By any means." Despite the encroaching dread that threatened to engulf him, a spark of professional fascination ignited within Alistair. He edged closer, his hand instinctively seeking his notepad. He had to document this, record every nuance, even as his logical mind battled to reconcile the unfolding events with established science. Maggie inhaled deeply, her gaze riveted on the ornate silver fastening securing the lid. With a decisive flick, she released it. The air seemed to shimmer, a low thrum vibrating through Alistair's very core. He watched, mesmerized, as Lady Victoria reached into the box, her gloved hands exhibiting a slight tremor. With delicate reverence, she cradled the skull, raising it slowly. Bathed in the dim illumination, it appeared to blaze with an unnatural radiance. Alistair squinted, seeking a rational explanation. Bioluminescence, perhaps, an optical illusion, nothing, only the unsettling, ethereal glow radiating from the bone itself. Then it commenced. As the skull emerged from its confinement, a sound erupted that shattered the stillness, a sonic blast that tore through the room. It was a keen, not a shout, nor a lament, but a raw, untainted wail of torment and despair. A sound that raked the soul, a keening born of unimaginable anguish and ceaseless suffering. The sound was deafening, ricocheting off the ancient stone walls, resonating in Alistair's cranium until he feared his head would burst. He clamped his hands over his ears, but the noise resided within him, a piercing, insistent presence that defied silencing. Lady Victoria flinched, dropping the skull back into the box with a muted impact. Her face was chalk white, her eyes wide with stark terror. Maggie gasped, reeling backward and grasping the wall for support. The cry ebbed slowly, lingering in the atmosphere like a spectral echo, leaving behind a quiet almost as unbearable as the noise. Alistair stood paralyzed, his heart hammering against his ribs like a frantic captive. He forced a deep breath, striving to regain control. It's merely acoustics," he stammered, his voice a bare breath. "The hall's architecture, it can amplify sound, create reverberations." He recognized the absurdity of his claim. Even to himself, the scream had been too profound, too visceral, to dismiss as simple acoustics. Yet, he clung to the explanation, desperate to salvage his faith in a rational world. Lady Victoria regarded him, her expression a blend of pity and incredulity. "Alistair," she murmured, "do not patronize me." That was no simple echo. Maggie nodded, her eyes still brimming with fear. "It was Anne," she breathed. "And Griffith, lamenting her lost home." Alistair shook his head, rejecting their narrative. "There has to be a scientific explanation," he insisted, his tone ascending in pitch. "A resonance of some kind, a vibration. We must analyze the sonic frequencies, the atmospheric pressure." He reached for his equipment, his hands trembling so violently that he could barely grasp the implements that he needed to uncover something, anything, to validate that what they had just witnessed was not supernatural. He had to prove that the world retained its inherent logic. But as he struggled with the gear, a frigid gust swept through the chamber, snuffing out the candles and casting them anew into Stygian darkness. And within the void, he discerned the unmistakable sound of muted, mournful sobbing, a sound that emanated from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Alistair stilled, his blood turning to Arctic ice. That he knew, with a bone-deep certainty, that no amount of scientific scrutiny could elucidate the events unfurling within Burton Agnes Hall. The skull was authentic, the legend was irrefutable, and he, Alistair Finch, the skeptical investigator, was utterly, irrevocably, out of his element. Unexplained events. The echoing scream still vibrated in Alistair's bones. It had been an assault on his senses, a blatant contradiction of everything he held to be true. Now, silence had descended, thick and heavy, pressing down on them like a shroud. But the silence didn't last. Alistair stood frozen, his gaze darting between Maggie, whose face was pale but composed, and Lady Victoria, who clutched her chest, breathing shallowly. A floorboard creaked loudly in the hallway outside the drawing room, then another, closer. This time, probably just the house settling, Alistair mumbled, the words sounding weak even to his own ears. He knew it was a lie. The house had been settling for centuries. These sounds were different, deliberate almost. Suddenly, the heavy oak door to the drawing room slammed shut with a resounding bang that made Lady Victoria jump. Maggie gasped, her eyes wide. Alistair lunged for the door, fumbling with the handle, but it wouldn't budge. He rattled it, pushed against it with his shoulder, but it remained stubbornly locked. "Let me," Maggie said, stepping forward. She placed her hand flat against the door, closing her eyes for a moment, and, she whispered, her voice barely audible, "Please, that we didn't mean any disrespect." The handle clicked, and the door swung inward. Alistair stared at it, bewildered. He hadn't heard the lock mechanism move. He pushed the door fully open, peering into the hallway. Empty, dust motes danced in the faint sunlight filtering through a nearby window, but there was no other sign of movement. "What was that?" Lady Victoria asked, her voice trembling. Alistair shook his head, trying to find a rational explanation. "The wind, a faulty latch." The words felt hollow, inadequate. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that neither explanation held water. There was no wind inside the hall, and the latch was a sturdy, well-maintained piece of Victorian craftsmanship. Over the next few hours, the unexplained events escalated. Books flew from shelves in the library, landing with unsettling thuds. A portrait of a stern-looking Beaumont ancestor swung wildly on its hook. Despite the complete absence of any breeze, the temperature fluctuated erratically, plunging from comfortable warmth to bone-chilling cold in a matter of seconds. Alistair tried to document everything, scribbling furiously in his notebook, attempting to quantify the unquantifiable. He checked for drafts, measured temperature changes, examined the hinges of the portrait. Each attempt at scientific analysis ended in frustration. The data offered no answers, no logical explanations. That he found himself drawn to Lady Victoria, observing her reactions. She seemed to grow smaller with each incident. Her shoulders slumped, her eyes filled with a deep, weary resignation that she'd always known. He realized that she'd lived with this her entire life, a prisoner in her own ancestral home. "It's getting worse," she said quietly, as they stood in the grand hall, watching a silver candlestick inexplicably slide across a polished table. "It's never been this intense." Alistair couldn't argue that he had come to Burton Agnes Hall seeking to debunk a myth, armed with his instruments and his unwavering belief in the power of reason. Now, confronted with the undeniable evidence of the impossible, he felt his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Later that evening, as darkness settled over the hall, a new phenomenon emerged. Whispers, faint, indistinct voices seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, murmuring words that Alistair couldn't quite decipher. Maggie, who had been relatively calm until now, looked genuinely frightened. "It's her," she whispered, her voice trembling, "and is trying to tell us something." Alistair dismissed it as suggestion, the power of belief amplified by the unsettling atmosphere, but then he heard it, too. A low, mournful sound, like a sob suppressed in the back of the throat. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, a pervasive sense of sorrow that permeated the very fabric of the building. That he found himself alone in the drawing room, the room where it had all begun. The skull sat on the table, shrouded in its protective box, but the air around it seemed to shimmer, to vibrate with an unseen energy. That he reached out, his hand hovering hesitantly above the box. What was it about this object that could inspire such fear, such power? He had dismissed it as superstition, as folklore, but now, staring at the unassuming container, he felt a profound sense of unease, a primal fear that transcended reason. Alistair knew then that he was no longer an objective observer. That he was caught in something far bigger than himself, something he couldn't explain, something he couldn't control. That he had opened a door, and now he had to face what came through. The unexplainable events had begun, and he had no idea how to stop them. The diary's tale. Sunbeams, fractured by grime-streaked panes, illuminated swirling particles as Alistair explored the attic's dusty recesses. The air, thick with the scent of antiquity and neglect, pressed down on him. He'd sought refuge here, a brief reprieve from the disquiet that had enveloped Burton Agnes Hall since Lady Victoria, at his instigation, had moved the skull. He'd rationalized his presence as a search for structural flaws, any logical cause for the escalating disturbances, but honestly, he craved something tangible, an anchor to reality in the face of rising, uncanny events. His fingers trailed along a line of time-worn chests, their leather surfaces flaking and brittle. Point one, secreted in a shadowy corner, stood slightly ajar, curiosity overcoming his apprehension. He knelt and raised the lid with care. Within, cushioned by faded linens and moth-eaten lace, lay a diary bound in aged leather. Its spine, fragile with age, bore faint traces of gilded lettering. He lifted it gingerly, dispersing a layer of fine dust. The paper felt delicate beneath his touch as he opened it. Elegant, spidery handwriting, now the color of dried tea, filled the pages. The initial entries documented routine affairs, social visits, weather reports, estate matters. Alistair scanned them, his frustration growing. He needed answers, not mundane details of a bygone era. Then, halfway through, a jarring note. An entry dated 1887, scrawled in a noticeably agitated hand. "The unrest has returned." It began subtly enough, a patch of cold air in the east wing, a faint sigh upon the staircase, but they intensify, becoming more insistent. Last night, Anne's portrait shuddered against the wall, as if straining to break free. The servants are gripped by terror that I consulted with Mrs. Elmsworth, the village wise woman, and she believes it is and Griffith that we have provoked her, she says. Something has been roused that should have remained undisturbed that I confess, I dismissed. The tale's as fanciful when I inherited the hall that a screaming skull, a silly legend to frighten the locals, but I can no longer deny what I am experiencing, the icy dread that permeates these rooms, the sensation of being watched, a pervasive sorrow. Mrs. Elmsworth warned me that and guards her home, her heritage, with great passion. Any attempt to violate the natural order, to dismiss her presence, would be met with reprisal. That I fear she speaks the truth, that we have committed some offense against her equilibrium. That I pray we can placate her before it's too late. The entry ceased abruptly, the subsequent pages remained unmarked. Alastair closed the diary, his pulse hammering. That a creeping chill, deeper than the attic's ambient dampness, prickled his skin. The diary offered no scientific proof, but it served as validation. Another soul, a century removed, had endured comparable occurrences, attributing them to the same origin, and Griffith. He pictured Lady Victoria, her face lined with exhaustion, her acceptance of the inexplicable. He dismissed her accounts as flights of fancy, a coping strategy for a solitary woman dwelling in a haunted manor. But what if her instincts were correct? What if the legend held more truth than fiction? He recalled Maggie, her steadfast faith in the genius loci, the enduring spirit of the past. That he had patronized her, viewing her as superstitious. Yet, what if her comprehension of Burton Agnes, of Anne Griffith, exceeded his own? He raked a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of his hubris, his misplaced confidence. He'd arrived intending to debunk a myth, to demonstrate that the screaming skull was merely local lore. Instead, he'd stumbled into something far more intricate, far more unsettling. The diary passage furnished a potential explanation, a motivation for the escalating paranormal activity. Anne's resentment at being disturbed. It was a tenuous clue, a murmur from the past. But the first substantial lead he possessed. That he needed to confer with Maggie. That he needed to decipher Mrs. Elmsworth's notion of appeasing, and that he needed to devise a way to reverse the harm he had unwittingly unleashed. That he tucked the diary beneath his arm and rushed from the attic, the burden of his skepticism dissolving, replaced by a mounting sense of urgency. The air in the hallway felt colder, the shadows more profound. That he could almost discern Anne's presence, observing him, waiting. With a creeping certainty, he recognized he had lost control. The screaming skull, the saga of Anne Griffith, had sprung to life, and he was enmeshed within its frightening grasp. He'd journeyed to Burton Agnes Hall seeking to disprove a spectral tale. Now, he dreaded, he was about to become part of its narrative, honoring the past. The weight of the diary's revelations pressed down on Alastair. Sleep offered no escape, only fragmented images of Anne Griffith's face, superimposed on the chilling details of the previous owner's spectral torment. He rose before dawn, the grand hall still cloaked in a preternatural silence that felt more like a hell breath than peace. He needed answers, not just to satisfy his scientific curiosity, but to undo the damage he had caused. He buried himself in the library, surrounded by towering shelves of leather-bound volumes. He wasn't looking for ghost stories now, but anthropological texts, accounts of ancient burial practices, and folklore surrounding death and the afterlife. He devoured information on ritualistic burials, the significance of ancestral remains, and the enduring power of belief. Hours blurred into a frantic search. He discovered recurring themes: the importance of respecting the deceased, the potential for unrest when sacred spaces were violated, and the belief that the spirit remained tethered to its earthly remains until properly laid to rest. The parallels within Griffith's story were undeniable. It wasn't just a local legend, it was a deeply rooted human understanding, a primal fear of disturbing the dead. By mid-morning, Lady Victoria found him slumped over a pile of books, his face pale and drawn. "Mr. Finch," she said, her voice laced with weary concern. "You look dreadful. Have you found what you were looking for?" Alistair looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "I think so, Lady Victoria. I think I finally understand." He gestured to the scattered books. "It's not about proving or disproving a ghost. It's about respect, about acknowledging the beliefs, the traditions that have shaped this place for centuries." He paused, gathering his thoughts. I believe we need to return the skull to its original location. The niche where it has resided for centuries." Lady Victoria's expression didn't change. It was as if she had been expecting this all along. "And you think that will appease her?" "I hope so," Alistair said, the word laced with a humility he hadn't possessed before. "Based on what I've read, it's the most logical course of action. Restore what was taken. Honor her wish." Later that day, Alistair found Maggie tending to the roses in the walled garden. The vibrant colors of the blooms seemed a stark contrast to the somber mood that had settled over the hall. He explained his findings and his plan, watching her carefully for any sign of skepticism, but Maggie simply nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It makes sense, Alistair. It's what should have been done in the first place." She snipped a wilting rose, her movements deliberate. "But it won't be as simple as just putting it back. You know that we need to do it properly, with respect, with intention." She explained the local customs, the old ways of appeasing restless spirits. A small offering of flowers, freshly baked bread, and a whispered prayer for peace. It wasn't scientific, but it was deeply ingrained in the fabric of Burton Agnes Hall and its history. Alistair, the former skeptic, listened intently, absorbing every detail. He was no longer searching for proof, but for guidance. He had moved the skull, and in doing so had upset more than the architectural makeup of the house. The following evening, as dusk painted the sky in shades of violet and gray, they prepared for the ritual. Lady Victoria, her face etched with a mixture of hope and apprehension, stood beside Maggie and Alistair in the grand hall. The skull, wrapped in a linen cloth, rested on a velvet cushion. A small table held the offerings, a basket of freshly baked bread, a vase of white lilies, and a small bowl of salt. Maggie led the way, her footsteps silent on the stone floor. They moved through the hall, the air growing colder with each step, until they reached the alcove where the skull had rested for centuries. The niche was empty, a dark void in the otherwise ornate wall. Alistair carefully placed the velvet cushion on the floor. He unwrapped the skull, revealing its aged and weathered surface. He felt a strange connection to it, a sense of shared history and sorrow. Maggie began to chant in a low, melodic voice, her words a mixture of Old English and local dialect. She spoke of Anne Griffith, of her love for Burton Agnes Hall, and of her desire for peace. Alistair added his own words, a simple plea for forgiveness and understanding. Together, they lifted the skull and placed it back in its niche. As it settled into place, a wave of cold air swept through the hall, extinguishing the candles and plunging them into darkness. A collective gasp escaped their lips. Then, just as suddenly, the air warmed, and a faint, floral scent filled the room. The candles flickered back to life, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The silence that followed was profound, unbroken by the creaks and groans that had become so familiar. Alistair held his breath, waiting for the inevitable scream, but it never came. Resistance. The skull weighed upon them with the density of lead. Their combined strength felt insufficient as they edged closer to the wall's recess, its stony vigil spanning centuries. Alistair's muscles corded, his grip a vice around the bone. Beside him, Maggie's breath hitched with each push, her complexion ruddy with the effort. Lady Victoria, though her face was ashen, anchored Alistair, her hands clasping the back of his coat, adding her slight weight to the struggle. "Feels like something doesn't want it back," Maggie wheezed, beads of perspiration gathering at her hairline. Alistair, despite a professional scoff at the notion, felt a ripple of disquiet that he blamed the awkwardness, the sheer mass, yet, a familiar shiver traced its way up his spine that he recognized this sensation, a change in the atmospheric pressure, a subtle resistance against his very skin that it transcended mere physics. They nudged forward, the cold, abrasive texture of the stone grazing their knuckles, the alcove, a shadowed rectangle, pulsed with a barely perceptible energy. Alistair imagined a loathsome emanating from within. With a final, concerted heave, they maneuvered the skull to the opening, yet, the instant they attempted to slide it home, an invisible barrier slammed into them that it was akin to striking a viscous current, an abrupt, jarring opposition that nearly toppled them. The skull, dislodged, landed with a dull thump against Alistair's chest. What in God's name was that? Lady Victoria breathed, her voice a fragile tremor. Alistair, breathless and unsteady, fixed his gaze first on the skull, then the alcove. His scientific mind groped for a rational explanation, but a growing, inescapable conviction that something preternatural was at work began to overwhelm his skepticism. Again, he urged, his voice raspy. We have to get it in place. They tried anew, and again, each attempt repelled by the same invisible force, its intensity escalating. The air chilled perceptibly, the thrum from the alcove intensified, and a faint, metallic tang, like rusted iron mingled with damp earth, permeated the air. Maggie halted, her lungs burning. We're forcing it, Alistair. It's not going to yield. We have to, Alistair argued, frustration sharpening his tone. We can't simply concede. But what if we're misinterpreting things? Maggie countered, her eyes wide with burgeoning fear. What if she doesn't desire to return? What if she requires something more? Alistair examined the skull resting in his hands. Its smooth, cold facade seemed to taunt him. He recalled the diary's entries, the searing emotions, the desperate longing to remain within the house she cherished. He closed his eyes, struggling to silence the insidious whispers of dread and uncertainty he considered in Griffith not as a legend or an anomaly, but as a person, a sibling, a child, anchored to this location by affection and heartbreak. He inhaled deeply, then opened his eyes. He observed the skull, and for the first time, he regarded it not as a morbid curiosity, but as a vessel, a delicate vestige of a life lived. And, he began, his voice quiet yet resolute. We understand this was your haven, that you held this place dear. We're attempting to assist you. We desire to restore your tranquility. He paused, listening for any acknowledgement, any indication. The atmosphere remained charged, though the stifling force seemed to diminish, ever so slightly. We know you were wronged, he pressed on, his voice gaining timbre. We know you endured suffering, but clinging to this resentment, this anguish, only perpetuates your pain. Release it, and relinquish it, and discover respite. He focused on the alcove, the shadowed space that had been her sanctuary for so long. He pictured her there, scrutinizing them, overhearing them. This is your home, Anne, he stated, injecting his voice with empathy. You are a part of this place. We seek to grant you lasting repose here. He turned back to Maggie and Lady Victoria. Help me, he requested. But this time, we proceed with reverence. We proceed with compassion. Together, they raised the skull once more. This time, the resistance remained, but it felt attenuated, less hostile. It felt more like a supplication than an obstruction. As they slid the skull into the alcove, Alistair whispered, Welcome home, Anne. The skull settled into its niche with a muted click, the humming subsided, the acrid odor evaporated, and the air grew still. A wave of exhaustion enveloped Alistair, but it was coupled with a deep sense of completion. He retreated a step, studying the skull in its recessed eye. In the twilight, it seemed to glimmer with a dim effulgence, a guiding light of peace finally achieved. Had he genuinely forged a connection with Anne? He couldn't be certain, but the oppressive atmosphere had certainly begun to Lift, Lady Victoria expelled a shaky breath. Do you believe it's finished? Alistair met her gaze, his face lined with weariness. I honestly don't know, he confessed. But I hope so, for the sake of everyone, I truly hope so. Peace restored. The skull slotted into the alcove's cold embrace as if it had always belonged there, with Lady Victoria guiding their hands. Maggie and Alistair settled it into place. The atmosphere, previously thick with dread, began to thin. The banshee wail of the wind outside modulated into a soft sigh, and the frantic dance of the candlelight steadied into a serene luminescence. A silence, profound and palpable, descended. It was more than just a lack of sound, it was a substantive stillness, a blanket of tranquility that soothed the room's frayed edges after the tempestuous outburst. Lady Victoria, her face a map of exhaustion, leaned against the wall, drawing ragged breaths. It's banished, she breathed, her voice a fragile thread above the hearth's comforting crackle. That feeling, gone. Maggie, her fingers still lightly touching Alistair's forearm, offered a slow nod. She murmured, her gaze sweeping the room, searching for the faintest echo of the prior chaos. Peace has returned to Burton Agnes, at long last. Alistair, his senses still adrift in the wake of the ordeal, felt a jarring disorientation. His logical mind wrestled with the impossible reality he'd just witnessed, struggling to reconcile it with his cherished scientific tenets. He'd arrived at Burton Agnes intending to debunk a mere fireside tale, to expose the screaming skull as a fabrication born of folklore and fear. Instead, he had confronted an entity that mocked explanation, shaking the very bedrock of his worldview. He stared at the skull, now resting quietly in its niche, its vacant eye socket seeming to hold an ancient, knowing gaze. Was it truly Anne Griffith's relic, a young life tragically curtailed centuries ago, and if so, what force had galvanized it, transforming it into a vessel of such potent energy? Answers eluded him, for now, yet, a certainty, deep and unwavering, settled within him. The legend was more than just a fanciful yarn. It was a manifestation of something undeniably real, undeniably potent, a force that defied easy dismissal. Thank you, Lady Victoria's voice cut through his thoughts, her eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and lingering fatigue. Thank you for your help, for aiding us. I shudder to think what might have transpired otherwise. Alistair managed a wan smile. I'm not sure I accomplished much, he rasped, his throat still tight with tension. But I'm relieved it subsided. Subsiding, Maggie corrected gently, her gaze steady. And remains, in essence, this place is her eternal dwelling. Lady Victoria stiffened her shoulders, a new steel entering her gaze. Then I shall embrace my role as its guardian, she avowed, her voice gaining resonance. I shall ensure her narrative endures, that her memory is cherished perpetually. The next morning dawned with a watery, pale sky and air so crisp it tasted of wet earth and shedding leaves. As Alistair stood in the courtyard, bidding farewell to Lady Victoria and Maggie, a sense of completion mingled with a persistent disquiet settled over him. I appreciate everything, Alistair, Lady Victoria said, extending her hand. You've unveiled perspectives I never deemed possible. My relationship with this house is irrevocably altered. And I'm grateful for your hospitality, Lady Victoria, Alistair countered, clasping her hand firmly. And for granting me the opportunity to experience, well, everything. He turned to Maggie, her radiant smile a welcome warmth against the chill air. Words fail me, Maggie, he admitted, his voice laced with sincerity. You possessed the truth all along. Maggie chuckled softly. I simply know this estate, Alistair, its tales, its guarded secrets, are ingrained within me. And I was too quick to negate them, Alastair conceded ruefully. I sought empirical evidence, and stumbled upon something exponentially more complex, more compelling. Sometimes, Maggie said, her eyes dancing with mirth, reality surpasses even the most extraordinary conjectures. Alastair smiled, a genuine expression that crinkled the corners of his eyes. I believe I'm beginning to grasp that concept. After a pause, he added, perhaps I'll return someday. To delve deeper into those narratives, to unlock more of those enigmas. You'll always find refuge at Burton Agnes, Alastair, Maggie replied, her tone both welcoming and genuine. As he steered away from the hall, Alastair caught a final glimpse in his rearview mirror. Burton Agnes's imposing facade, etched against the wan sky, seemed to murmur ancient sagas of devotion, bereavement, and the enduring sway of belief. He knew he would carry the echoes of his stay, the events forever etching themselves upon his perception of existence. He'd arrived a confirmed skeptic. Intent on exposing a fabrication he departed transformed, humbled by the forces he'd encountered, imbued with a deeper reverence for the veiled wonders that lurked beneath the veneer of the everyday. The screaming skull hadn't been silenced, but perhaps, at long last, its torment had subsided. Within that stillness, Alastair discovered an unexpected and profound peace of his own.